The moment he opens his eyes, he finds himself thrust into an unforgiving world of endless train survival, a place where every passenger is forced to disembark at every single station to explore, driven by the sole goal of staying alive. While a lucky few might stumble upon rare treasures, the unlucky ones often pay for their curiosity with their lives, proving that danger is always close. To survive this terrifying game, everyone must constantly gather supplies and upgrade their carriages, eventually building a personalized train world of their own. But our protagonist enters this game with a highly unfair advantage. One-of-a-kind ascension ability, allowing him to evolve anything he touches to its utmost potential, instantly turning mundane items into extraordinary tools. A crude dagger can be refined into an enchanted, sharp blade and eventually become the legendary eternal cutter. Even a simple forest fruit tree can be elevated into a blessed tree, and finally into Venus's legendary golden fruit tree. Even a simple beehive is not exempt, as he can transform it into a giant wasp or nano hive. While the rest of the world is still desperately fighting over a single piece of bread, he continues to grow stronger through this insane power, leaving everyone else trailing in the dust, looking around his starting carriage. He wonders if even the train itself can be upgraded with this ability. It turns out his intuition is correct, because before the first station even arrives, he has already secured a massive lead. A system notification pulses in his mind, informing him that the ascension was successful and that he broke a server record, which in turn unlocks the powerful Destiny Divergence module. As the conductor, he is told he can now choose his next station, bracing himself. He listens as the system warns him to hold on, because the train is arriving at its very first stop. Before we get deeper into his epic journey, we would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe. It helps out a lot. Now, let us go back to what happened just a few hours earlier, when a haunting message echoed in the void, wishing him eternal life as his train prepared to make its departure. When he finally opens his eyes, a sharp ache pulses through his head, and he finds himself rubbing his temples while staring at the unfamiliar train carriage. He cannot recall a single detail of how he actually arrived here. His last memory is simply staying up late to watch anime before a sudden darkness swallowed his vision, leaving a frustrating blank gap in his mind. For a moment, he wonders if he actually died from overworking and got sent straight to hell, but that same mysterious voice from before interrupts his grim thoughts, announcing that all survivors have awakened as it begins distributing the basic train regulations. He listens closely as the basic rules are laid out. He is warned to never abandon his train, and he quickly learns that every 24 hours after departure, they will arrive at a new station. These docks last for 3 hours, giving them the choice to disembark. The ultimate goal is to collect resources to upgrade the train and unlock brand new modules, but the voice is clear: he must not leave the train before reaching a station. The final command is simple and chilling: survive. The system warning makes it absolutely clear to obey. New rules appear. He learns that the very first station arrives in exactly 1 hour. The strange warning makes him reflexively pinch his own cheek. A sharp sting proves this is entirely real. As his headache fades, he struggles right up. He stands on the cold floor to survey his surroundings. It is exactly as it looks: a solitary train carriage hurtling through the endless wilderness. Trees stream past the windows. The only feature is an oval device. It sits at the front, featuring a glowing screen that displays some bold, digital words. He approaches the interface and touches the train control system. The system immediately offers him options for conductor information, train details, and a trading platform. Curious about everything, he taps the public chat room open. The screen shows a maximum capacity of 10,000 people. Frantic messages flood the chat. One person screams about his vast wealth, begging to be let out. Another passenger desperately searches for their life-saving medication. Meanwhile, a terrified woman named Cheyenne cries out to find her lost husband. Several others wonder if they have been iced, while one cynical soul actually cheers. They are glad to skip work tomorrow. However, one terrifying text suddenly catches his eye. The user claims they are all actors in a reality show. He announces that he is getting off the train immediately to prove it is fake. He ignores every warning from the others. Within 60 seconds, he vanishes. Just like that, one soul vanishes. The player count drops to 9,999. He shivers, wondering if the man died. he quickly closes the chat. He swipes over to check his own train details instead. It is a level 1 carriage. With no extra cars crawling at 20 kilometers per hour, a workbench stands ready for basic recycling, along with a simple level 1 frame, wheels, and base. Upgrade costs are incredibly steep: wood, metal, and 50 mechanical parts. The slow speed really bothers him. If arrival times are fixed at 24-hour intervals, why would speed matter? Plus, with 10,000 people arriving simultaneously, the upcoming station will have to be absolutely and incredibly massive. Then he looks back at the dark wilderness. A sudden unsettling thought hits him. Perhaps speed is critical because if he moves too slowly, something dangerous will catch him. Shaking off the dread, he opens his personal info profile. His name and basic identity details are listed alongside his current sanity and stamina ratings. Both sit at a full 100, the sanity meter warnings detail progressive stages of mental decline, starting from mild fatigue all the way to madness. Stamina governs his physical actions. He has no active combat abilities. But under his special talent section, one word changes everything. He sees the term sublimation. The system explains he can expend stamina or sanity to evolve any object or existence without any restrictions on its category or overall level. He immediately searches the busy chat room for mentions of other talents. He finds nothing at all. If such powers were common, other players would have bragged. This means talent holders must be exceptionally rare in this place. He ponders why he received this incredible cheat ability. Then, he slowly recalls his past. Back home, he had always been slightly different from other people. Broken computers would suddenly run high-end video games the moment he touched them. Even regular cars reached impossible speeds. He always thought his talent for pleasing machine spirits was just a string of lucky coincidences, but now, this system description confirmed the power was absolutely real. How far could this power actually go? He stepped over to the wooden workbench, checking out his basic starter survival gear. Just a basic water bottle, bread, and a cheap level 1 dagger. He commanded it to sublimate. An unseen force wrapped the metal, draining his stamina from 100 to 90. Instantly, it morphed into a sharp dagger. His brand new blade gleamed coldly, proving the talent actually worked. Even better, that stamina cost was completely manageable. Testing his upgraded weapon, he swung the blade, listening to it whistle with a sharp, clean slice. High quality from total garbage, but now an even bigger idea hit him. Looking around, a wild idea hit him. The system said any existence, so it had to include the massive engine. Taking a deep, excited breath, he marched right up to the main control panel. He pressed his hand flat against the console. The unseen energy flared up again, but this time the toll was terrifying. His stamina was getting ripped away much faster than with the tiny knife. Bone-crushing exhaustion instantly slammed into him. From 90 to a mere 30, he collapsed on the floor, gasping. Honestly, watching his stamina completely tank like that is terrifying, but it pays off. Right before his eyes, the train began to bend and reshape itself into something far superior. It was now level 2, but the requirements for level 3 were absolutely brutal. 200 kilograms of wood, 200 mechanical parts, and 400 kilograms of metal blocks. Physical upgrades were not the only reward. He had unlocked brand new custom options and a special record-breaking achievement reward. That speed record earned him a special card. Once his breathing finally evened out, he pulled up the train status screen. Reaching level 2 had automatically upgraded the chassis, wheels, and the workbench, effectively doubling their speed from 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. But what really grabbed his attention was a gut feeling. This train had so much more room. Unlike the dagger, which hit its limit, this engine had a massive ceiling. His stamina reserves definitely were not high enough to try it again right away. Not without tapping his mental energy. Risky. Remembering those sanity warnings, he quickly shoved that dangerous idea away. Instead, he focused on the new upgrade choices and that mysterious module card. The shop presented 4 blueprints: a free carriage, a water tank for 1 coin, and a burst accelerator for 5. And finally, longer docking times for 2 coins. He frowned slightly. But he had 0 coins. He worried he would be forced to take the free option and miss the others. Luckily, the system allowed reservations. Those blueprints would remain locked in for up to 3 station stops. He pulled the free carriage blueprint, noting the massive material cost. He decided against sublimating the blueprint itself for now, fearing that the upgraded construction costs would be impossible to meet before he had even secured basic resources. Instead, he eyed the special module card appearing as a glowing diamond wreathed in pale blue particles above his palm, the description frustratingly vague, stating it would grant a special module upon activation. Naturally, he just could not resist upgrading the card itself. His stamina was low, but his mental energy was fine, and a quick meal of bread and water miraculously restored his stamina back up to 50, he murmured to himself that testing this should be fine, then silently triggered the upgrade. That invisible force returned with a vengeance, and the card released a brilliant shower of blue particles resembling a trail of shooting stars. To anyone watching, the train probably looked like a comet trailing blue flames. As it blasted through the deep void, once the light faded, he felt a heavy lethargy in his bones, his stamina plummeted down to 20, and his mental energy hit 60, triggering a mental fatigue penalty. Still, despite paying 70 total points, it was worth it. The card had evolved into an exclusive module card. He lay on the floor inspecting it, wondering what this mental fatigue actually meant, since he did not feel any different. Maybe sheer physical exhaustion was just masking the strain. He offered a quick, desperate prayer to every deity he could think of, from the ancient gods to the god emperor, before finally activating the card. Brilliant azure light enveloped him as the system congratulated him on obtaining a unique conductor module called Crossroads of Fate. Its passive effect was incredibly simple, yet profound. His path would always offer a second choice, and different choices would lead to entirely different destinies before he could even look closer at the details. The train's speaker system crackled, announcing their imminent arrival. At the first station, he was shocked to realize a whole hour had already slipped by unnoticed. With only 1 minute left, a second screen appeared because of his new module, presenting him with two clear choices: Platform 1, the swampland, or Platform 2, the armory. Recognizing the power of his exclusive module, he chose the armory. Honestly, a smart move, because while others prioritize food, nothing gives you more security in this place than this harsh world than weapons. The moment he made his choice, the space ahead of the train warped violently, looking like the open mouth of a beast. The train whistle shrieked as they plunged directly through that warped reality, and their surroundings transformed completely. They had arrived. The docking countdown began. At 3 hours, and to his massive relief, the system reported 0 hazards detected at this station. The train gradually slowed down to a crawl, and the rhythmic clatter of the tracks faded into heavy silence. He had arrived at his first real stop. Standing right before the sealed door, he took a deep breath to steady his nerves, gripping his upgraded dagger tightly before hitting the door release. Outside, the world was draped in an oppressive pitch black void, but strangely, a massive building the size of a matchbox stood clearly in his line of sight. Looking up, he realized there was no sun, and yet the road was visible, the structure too. It hit him right then that space traversal is a truly incredible power. It certainly explained why all the trains shared the same arrival times despite the distances. He stepped off the train, reaching the entrance in fewer than 10 steps. Massive doors were shut tight, but he managed to pry a gap open with his dagger. As the heavy leaves swung wide, a wave of rotten stench hit him square the face. He walked inside to find rows of neatly arranged wooden crates, the clear source of the decaying odor. Using his blade, he pried the rusted iron locks off the nearest crate. Inside, 2 bolt-action rifles lay half buried in wood shavings. The system identified them as low-level marksman rifles, each equipped with 20 low-grade bullets, 2 guns, and 40 rounds in just 1 crate. This was good stuff. He spent the next hour opening several crates in a row and hauling the loot back to the train. After several trips, the adrenaline-fueled strength he had been running on began to hit its limit. His stamina had dropped to 15 points. The repeated use of sublimation had already pushed his physical boundaries, though his excitement had somehow allowed his spirit to recover to 70. With 3 hours of docking time and no energy replenishment, he realized he wouldn't have much strength left to move supplies if he did not pace himself. After resting, he shifted from heavy lifting to exploration. In a side room, he spotted several sealed iron boxes on a shelf. That reminded him of military supply videos he had seen back home. The markings on the surface were blurred, but he felt a surge of nervous anticipation as he swallowed hard and pried one open. Inside were neatly arranged blocks of compressed biscuits looking like bars of gold and emitting a faint milky aroma. Mixed with a fermented tang, regardless of expiration dates, he stuffed one into his mouth immediately. It was exactly what he needed, though he quickly realized he would need water. These things quench hunger but leave you completely parched, he found. 4 barrels of these rations, 80 biscuits in total, enough to sustain a man for half a month. Nearby, he found sealed barrels of water, but the smell was distinctly undrinkable. Still, he moved everything onto the train. When surviving is the goal, nothing goes to waste. This armory was cramped, filled with collapsed shelves and rotting debris. In 2 hours, he salvaged 42 intact rifles. The rest were rusted beyond use, fit only for the processing station. He also loaded up on iron and wood, even if they were not for his own upgrades. They would be valuable for trading. With 30 minutes left on the countdown, he decided on one last trip. His carriage was getting crowded, and he knew a second carriage was his top priority. He had the wood and parts, but he was still short on metal. He headed for the innermost area, bypassing the mess to check the final rooms. These looked like former living quarters. The first few were empty, but as he entered the last one, he heard a sickening crunch. He looked down to see he had stepped on a small leg bone from a skeleton. He muttered a quick apology to the brother on the floor. He was not particularly afraid. Even as a kid, horror movies amused him, and he had never been fazed by the sight of the deceased. As he withdrew his foot, he noticed a dust-covered paper document bag beneath the remains. It was strange. Iron and wood had rotted too. Nothing remained here, yet this paper bag was perfectly intact. Intrigued, he quickly snatched it up, jogging back to the train to run a system appraisal scan. Function watching out for traps. To his surprise and absolute delight, the screen identified it as a level 1 treasure chest. He laughed, thanking the old skeleton brother and promising him a proper burial later, but as he went to open it, he paused. If he could sublimate the train, surely he could sublimate this too. His stats sat at 30 stamina and 80 spirit. A small bag like this would not drain him too much, and he could always eat a biscuit to recover. Once he convinced himself the choice was made, he whispered the command to sublimate, causing his stats to drain instantly, while a warning flashed on his screen that his spirit had fallen below 50, plunging him into a state of deep self-doubt. He collapsed onto the floor like a fish out of water, staring at the swaying ceiling lamp. After a moment, he sat up with 20 stamina and 50 spirit left. Honestly, it did not feel like a big deal. Aside from heavy physical fatigue, the self-doubt debuff did not hinder him, but upgrading this folder to level 2 cost 40 points, higher than he expected, but the folder became a new level 2 treasure chest. It seemed it could not be pushed any further for now. Perhaps lacking potential or capped by a rule he did not yet fully understand. He rubbed his hands together and opened the folder. The rewards flashed before his eyes. 4 train coins, a Colt M1911 pistol, and a level 2 blueprint for an external garbage collector. Looking at the 4 shiny coins he had just acquired, he realized that this was indeed the primary way to obtain the local currency. He opened his train details and saw the level 2 upgrade options on the screen. They were still available at the top of the interface. Without much hesitation, he spent 3 of those newly acquired coins on a basic water tank blueprint and an extra hour of docking time, leaving him with only a single coin to his name. If he could find another treasure chest at the very next station, he might just gather enough to meet the requirements for that acceleration device. He saw the countdown had shifted to an hour and 15 minutes, so he turned to his physical rewards. From the chest, the Colt M1911 felt surprisingly substantial in his hand, compared to the mass-produced firearms he salvaged from the armory. Its craftsmanship was so refined it could easily be considered a true work of art. He quickly deduced that guns in this world used the same kind of bullets, so he loaded a magazine with low-grade ammo to test it out, aiming at a wooden box. Outside the carriage, he pulled the trigger and watched as the crate instantly exploded into splinters. The sheer power of the shot took him by. Who can blame him? He rubbed his sore palm where the heavy recoil bit deep into the webbing of his hand. Though this handgun used the same bullets as the ones from the armory, it was twice as powerful. The thought of what would happen if he actually sublimated it crossed his mind, but he quickly shook his own head to dismiss the dangerous idea. Now was not the time for reckless gambles. especially since his physical and mental reserves were hovering near their limits. It would be far wiser to wait until he fully recovered. After putting the handgun pistol away, he used the control system to examine the 2 blueprints he acquired. This basic water tank would let him store water and prevent it from spoiling for 10 days, costing only 10 kilograms of metal and 20 mechanical parts. That external waste collector seemed way more intriguing, as it would automatically sweep up and store garbage from the platforms before leaving. It needed 30 kilograms of metal and 100 mechanical parts, with an optional upgrade costing 300 extra parts to let his workbench automatically recycle that waste into clean, usable materials. Checking his current stash of 210 kilograms of wood, 60 metal, and 220 parts, he muttered that he could easily afford both. But wait, doing that would mean putting his first extra train carriage on hold for now. He chose not to rush, since that extra docking time he bought gave him the luxury of some real rest. As the countdown hit its final hour, he opened the trading platform to scan the market. Rules were pretty strange. While conductors could only sell items after leaving a station, other people still docked were completely free to buy whatever was already online. This seemed like an obvious attempt to block station-to-station supply transfers, yet it did absolutely nothing to stop private trades for docked trains. It felt like a massive loophole, making him wonder if the entity behind this whole survival game was subtly hinting that players could ignore rules to some extent. He focused on trading for metal, scanning his stash of cheap rifles and compressed biscuits. Food and security were absolutely vital. But when he refreshed the market page, he found that although some people listed metal, the amounts were tiny and prices were absurdly inflated. Just testing the waters, apparently. No real fair deals anywhere. Checking the global chat, he saw it scrolling wildly with crazy posts from conductors already moving past their first stops. One guy complained about finding only trashy old tires at a waste station, while another hated landing in a stinking muddy grassland. When some guys pointed out that this black soil right here could grow vegetables, others mocked them for having absolutely no train space. The global chat shifted completely when someone posted a fresh blueprint for a basic mechanical fishing rod, sparking instant envy and confusion. It seemed like most passengers had not found any blueprints yet. People quickly began desperately haggling, offering basic bread and water, rations for mechanical parts. Honestly, it was a pretty pathetic scene. People offered half a loaf of bread just to survive. Then things got worse. Everyone started arguing about treasure chests. The empty-handed ones grew pretty hostile, demanding others share info for the sake of survival. Eventually someone cracked. Under all that pressure, they posted a screenshot of opening a level 1 treasure chest. Inside were 2 train coins, a healing salve, and a blueprint for an aluminum insulation pad. Analyzing this progression, our main character calculated that if a simple level 1 chest gives 2 coins and level 2 gives 4, then a level 3 chest should logically yield 6, compared to his level 2. All those first-tier rewards felt incredibly meager, even though he knew medicine was a rare luxury here, and every single coin counted. Every bit of wealth meant progress. Then, a public chat message caught his attention. A player named Li Zio Shan was online, offering metal for trade. The seller wanted weapons above all else, which said a lot about his situation. Prioritizing weapons over food meant this guy was already doing pretty well. He preferred doing business with capable survivors, not desperate beggars. Dealing with strong players was always smarter, so he decided to send a message. A private message popped up immediately as Li Zioshan asked about the trade. He asked if our guy wanted metal, but he countered by asking for his stock. The seller grew cautious, immediately asking back exactly how much he actually needed. He was clearly playing defense, confirming he had a massive hoard of resources. When asked to supply 150 kilograms of metal, the chat went dead silent. The guy was probably staring at his screen, in absolute shock right now. That amount could fully upgrade a level 1 train. He had to be questioning everything. How did our hero already have all the wooden mechanical parts for this? After a tense pause, the seller admitted he had the metal, but wanted details. He demanded to know what was on the table, mocking the basic starter dagger. That dagger was only worth 10 kilograms, so our guy offered a real rifle instead. He snapped a quick picture of a salvaged, low-grade rifle using the system. 1 gun and 20 bullets, offered straight in exchange for all that metal. That was 150 kilograms. The seller immediately called it straight robbery. No gun was worth that much, he claimed, but our protagonist didn't blink. He casually tossed a bullet in his hand. He held all the cards here. Being the only arms dealer meant he set the rules. He said it was cheap. Think of the incredible value of a firearm against the horrors of the next stop. A weapon was a literal lifeline, and they both knew it. The seller had scored over 300 kilograms of metal and a chest earlier. He probably felt like the luckiest man alive with that massive haul. But all that pride evaporated the moment he stared at a real firearm. When the seller tried negotiating down to 100 kilograms, our hero just smiled. Our guy just narrowed his eyes. The seller had completely shown his hand. Our guy refused to budge on the price. It was strictly take it or leave it. There were plenty of other buyers waiting. The seller gritted his teeth in frustration. He begged for time to think, but our hero gave him exactly 10 seconds. The seller had no idea our guy was actually building a massive train carriage. Carriage building was the goal, not basic engines. Finally, the seller cracked. He agreed to the trade, then curiously asked why anyone needed that much metal. He wondered if our guy had blueprints to mass-produce these high-power firearms. He promised he was not trying to steal any secrets, just looking for future deals. The seller boasted about reaching level 2 within just 3 quick train stops. He even offered to advertise the guns once he became a famous top conductor. Our protagonist found this absolute confidence pretty hilarious, to be honest. If reaching level 2 in 3 stops was impressive, what about doing it now? He was doing it before even leaving the very first station, simply unreal. Deciding to humor the guy's wild ego, he just told him to finish the trade. The system handles the transaction easily, prompted he. Places the rifle and bullets down as a virtual glow swaps them. For neatly stacked metal ingots, it is an incredibly convenient and interesting upgrade. Process which is fully moderated by the system's completely impartial arbitration, with all his new resources secured, he places the basic carriage blueprint on the processing station. A translucent screen appears, confirming the materials are ready. When he finally selects the option to construct, the wood, metal, and mechanical parts vanish, reassembling through a mysterious force at the rear of the train. The new carriage descends smoothly onto the tracks and connects to the locomotive with a satisfying click. The system notifies him that construction is complete and mentions that he can further modify it with glass and fiber. For now, it is a spacious empty shell about 10 meters long. Roomy, bright, and exactly what he needs. It lacks glass in the window frames and has no external door, requiring entry through the rear of the locomotive, but it feels right. A train shouldn't just be an engine after all. He nods in satisfaction and checks his stats, deciding his stamina and mental energy are too low for further sublimation. He begins moving his supplies from the locomotive into the new carriage. He still has 40 minutes left on the countdown, plenty of time to return to the armory and gather whatever remains. His current stats sit at a weary 21 for stamina and 59 for mental energy, leaving him in an official status of exhausted. Inside the train, he lies motionless on the floor like a salted fish that has lost all hope of moving. Again, during these final moments, he had drained his last reserves of strength, making 2 final round trips to the armory, but he hadn't forgotten his earlier promise. Despite the physical strain of hauling materials, he managed to use a shovel to dig a grave for those skeletal remains, even erecting an unmarked tombstone as a final gesture of respect. That marked the conclusion of his harvest at the station. As the departure countdown finally reached 0, the previously stationary train begins to groan and slowly lurch forward. Ahead of the locomotive, those familiar spatial distortions reappear, and the train steadily accelerates through the boundary, returning once more to the endless expanse of the desolate wasteland. Simultaneously, the train's broadcast system crackles to life. It announces that all conductors have left the platform, offering hollow congratulations to the 9,892 individuals who successfully departed from the first novice station. The voice then warns them that they have officially exited the newcomer safety period. Starting from the second station, there will no longer be a guarantee that trains will stop in safe areas. Talk about a brutal wake-up call. This announcement causes an immediate uproar in the chat. Some question the timing, wondering why they seemingly left the platform an hour later than expected, while others realize with frustration that someone must have stayed an extra hour at the first station. There are even those calling him a cheater, and others lamenting that they hadn't realized the first station was actually safe. Some conductors share grim stories, like one whose first station was a desert where they nearly perished in quicksand. He remains largely unaware of their. He ignored the bickering, far too busy organizing his latest haul on the carriage floor. His inventory was pretty impressive now: 49 rifles and 1,100 rounds of ammo, 150 kilograms of wood, 104 of metal, and 160 mechanical parts. He had also salvaged various useful tools like crowbars, shovels, and screwdrivers. He tossed the broken ones into the processing station for recycling, keeping the rest as handy backups. His current blueprints for the water tank and waste collector needed 40 kilograms of metal and 110 mechanical parts, which barely made a dent in his newfound reserves. After placing the blueprints and allocating resources, the control system approved the installation. He commanded the system to place the water tank inside the carriage and mount the collector on the left exterior. Once the installation was complete, he walked back to find a sturdy metal water tank with wheels occupying a corner of his new carriage. It could hold 1,000 kilograms of water and featured separate compartments to keep clean and contaminated water completely separate. He poured in the 50 kilograms of polluted water from the armory, feeling a slight pang of disappointment that he did not have a purification system yet. Though he was not overly anxious, he decided it was time to test the market. Posting his first message in the public chat room, he stated he was buying water, glass, fiber, blueprints, and various resources, offering firearms and food in exchange. Just as he expected, the mention of weapons caused an immediate frenzy, and honestly, who can blame them? For guns, some asked if he was a big shot upgrading his train, while others offered themselves as lackeys or tried to guilt-trip him into sharing his wealth for the sake of humanity. He noticed several foreign names flooding into the private messages, which surprised him briefly before he realized this harsh world likely pulled survivors from everywhere, perhaps even different versions of Earth. He instantly blocked anyone attempting moral blackmail or looking for handouts, filtering instead for real potential. A woman named Shangyuan Ying offered 20 kilograms of lake water, though she specified she would not provide any container. He replied with a cool, detached tone, pointing out that lake water could be lethal without filtration. She needed to show more sincerity if she wanted a gun. She seemed pretty frustrated, but asked him to name his price. He demanded 50 kilograms. In this harsh world, water was far more precious than metal, especially since very few had storage containers. Even if they found a source, his true minimum was 30 kilograms of undrinkable water for one gun, but he knew he held all the leverage here. After all, he was only one person, no matter how many guns he held. Converting them into bulk resources was his only logical path forward. She eventually agreed to the 50 kilograms, though she reminded him quite sharply that he had to handle the storage himself. He could not help but wonder if his price was too low, since the other party agreed instantly. Did he just get played? No time to second guess. He confirmed the deal and prepared to proceed, but Shangyuan Ying quickly added that she needed more bullets and food. It made him curious where this woman was getting so much water. Having huge quantities was not necessarily shocking, since she had mentioned it was lake water, so her first stop likely bordered a lake. But what truly puzzled him was how she was storing all that water. Soon, the 3-hour docking period at this station would end. Both the trade platform and the chat room were supposedly restricted. Had she found containers or built them from blueprints like he had? He did not ask. In this world, everyone had secrets. He set his prices clearly: 5 low-grade bullets per kilogram of water, with no container required on her end. For food, he offered military compressed biscuits, exchanging 1 biscuit for 5 kilograms of water. She agreed immediately, requesting 100 bullets and 3 biscuits, along with the rifle and ammunition. That brought the total to 85 kilograms of lake water. When she asked if he had containers or if he needed to buy some from her, he told her it was not necessary and initiated the trading point materialized directly above his water tank. As the firearms and bullets vanished, 85 kilograms of water materialized out of thin air, cascading into the reservoir. Between this and his previous Trades, he now possessed 135 kilograms of water. He stared at the liquid, resisting the urge to take a drink. It looked clean, but he knew that drinking unfiltered, unboiled lake water was a death sentence. Wise move. They finished the transaction with a professional sign-off, and she silently sent a friend request, which he accepted without hesitation. Compared to the pretentious Li Ziao Sheng, he preferred her quiet, no-nonsense style. He spent the next several hours successfully selling off numerous rifles and ammunition. In return, he acquired the fiber and glass needed to reinforce his new carriage. Once he applied the upgrades, glass panes appeared, transforming the drafty compartment into a proper room. Talk about an upgrade. By the time he finished, he had 21 rifles left. He had not stuck to fixed prices, choosing instead to sell whenever an offer seemed reasonable. These low-level items would only depreciate as people unlocked better blueprints, so hoarding them was definitely unwise. Finally done for the day, he enjoyed a proper dinner of traded bread and mineral water before curling up in a warm corner of the front cabin. He was too exhausted to worry about survival. His only thought was sleep. As the train rumbled through the wasteland, he watched the high-hanging moon until his eyes finally drifted shut. He woke up shivering from the night's chill, rubbing the sleep from his eyes and stretching his stiff neck. The wasteland outside was as desolate as ever, shrouded in a cold, lonely light. From the giant moon, he checked the timestamp, 3:37 a.m. The chat room was still scrolling, proving that few others were able to sleep as soundly as he had. Since he could not get back to sleep anyway, he brushed off the dust and stood up. His stamina and mental energy had mostly restored, meaning it was time for more sublimation. He decided to start with the Colt 1911. It was already a work of art, and he was eager to see what it would become, especially since the next stop was guaranteed to be dangerous. He commanded the system to sublimate, feeling his stamina drain away. The pitch-black frame developed faint, elegant patterns and grew slightly larger, now requiring a firm grip to wield. It had become a level 3 blacklight enchanted pistol, capable of consuming his stamina to convert standard bullets into armor-piercing rounds. It cost 40 stamina points, totally acceptable. He set up some metal scraps as a target and pulled the trigger while channeling his energy. Boom! A deafening blast and searing flash followed as an armor-piercing round tore through the air, punching a clean hole through the target. He was floored. Aside from the heavy kick, it barely felt like a handgun anymore. At 2 stamina per special round, it was a sustainable advantage. The system hinted at further sublimation, but he decided against it. The recoil was already right at the limit of his physical control. Having enough energy left, he moved to the new carriage and touched the wall, triggering a sublimation. Surprisingly, it only cost 25 stamina and 0 mental energy. The space transformed into a level 2 cozy train carriage, imbued with enchanted warmth, keeping it a constant 22 degrees Celsius inside. No matter the weather, no more freezing nights for him. Satisfied, he grabbed his traded blanket and spread it on the floor. The stamina loss was the perfect cure for insomnia. He had to conserve his energy for the second stop tomorrow. That night, while others stayed awake, shivering in the freezing wind, he slept in total comfort, waking up at 10:27 a.m. He stretched his stiff limbs. He figured that since they entered the first station at 1 p.m. yesterday, they would probably arrive around the exact same time today. Still, would his 1-hour delay push things? His arrival back, when he stepped out of his warm carriage and returned to the locomotive, the sudden chill was jarring. His control panel was flooded with messages. With the dangerous second station close, the value of his weapons was skyrocketing. A message from a user named Lu caught his eye. He asked if blueprints could be traded. Up until now, absolutely nobody had been willing to part with one, since they were basically infinite production machines. He asked what Lu had, who sent a screenshot of a level 1 train seat blueprint, just a chair, not high-tier gear, but it was a permanent asset. He agreed to trade, offering a gun and 10 bullets. He reasoned that while firearms were precious, their value was temporary, while a blueprint provided endless utility. Lu was incredibly grateful, bordering on pure desperation. He claimed that without the gun, he would surely die at the next station. This made our guy wonder if Lu had a talent for foresight or danger sensing. He did not press, simply completing the trade and going to the manufacturing station to produce his new black chair. Sitting in it felt like a return to civilization. he spent his final hour before arrival closing out a few more deals, selling 15 rifles and 300 bullets. He kept the rest for his own protection. With his stats nearly full at 98 stamina and 100 spirit, he took one of his own rifles and upgraded it. This cost 13 points and made a Level 2 exquisite marksman rifle. It was not as powerful as his enchanted handgun, but still a solid upgrade. Now the real tension begins. The chat room grew quiet and oppressive. 30 minutes before arrival, his crossroads of fate module triggered, offering him a choice between a level 2 hunting platform called the Goblin Camp or a level 3 collection platform called the White Forest. He noticed the system was providing more detail now, including he stares at the station tiers. Had that armory just been a level 1 challenge? Upgrading his train must have unlocked these higher tier paths. He picked the White Forest. A simple collection platform seemed way safer than throwing himself into a goblin camp. Spatial rifts warp the air. 5 minutes later, the train is completely enveloped. A pale gray light washes over. Outside lies a strange forest of bone-white trees. The system logs a 4-hour stop and flashes a low-risk warning label. Oddly enough, nobody in the chat rooms ever mentioned seeing actual hazard ratings. That had to be a sweet perk of his exclusive upgrade, time to gear up. He holsters his pistol, slings the rifle over his shoulder, and grabs his supplies. Stepping past the automatic doors and out into the open, the silence hits him. It is tomb silent, no sound. He can hear his own heartbeat. Scanning the eerie white woods, he wonders what a gathering platform actually offers. Beyond the endless pale trunks, a small dirt path suddenly catches his eye. Stepping onto the path, he ventures deeper into the strange, lifeless forest. Senses dialed to 11, he watches the shadows. His hand hovers near his weapon, but thankfully nothing breaks the dead silence. The silence holds. Soon, the trail ends in a pale clearing. A cluster of trees bearing pale fruit stands before him. Are these his targets? Approaching the nearest trunk, he reaches out to examine the strange harvest. He uses his dagger to slice a stem, catching a single pale fruit as it falls. Bringing it closer, a sweet yet bitter aroma wafts from the strange skin. It smells unlike any fruit he ever encountered in his past life. He swallows hard, staring. The fragrance is so hypnotic, so completely intoxicating. An intense, primal urge to devour it whole suddenly surges through his mind. Just as his teeth are about to sink in, wait for it, a sharp alarm bell rings. He hurls the fruit away, his heart slamming wildly against his ribs. He stands there panting, trying to process what the hell just happened. His stamina is fine at 93, but his spirit stat plummeted to 72. Cold sweat breaks out. That stat was maxed just moments ago. It drained drastically in the few seconds he held that single fruit. He was not hungry or thirsty, making that sudden, desperate hunger completely abnormal. The speed of that spirit drain was terrifying, faster than a sublimation. A complete trap. These fruits are poisonous. He backs away quickly. It is annoying that his train appraisal function only works on board. But he suspects the low-risk rating of this station is tied to these hallucinogens. Maybe the scent alone was enough to trigger that sudden mental slip. After a tense pause, he decides he cannot leave empty-handed. He has to get these specimens back to the train for a proper system analysis. Ripping a strip of cloth from his clothes, he ties it tightly around his face. A makeshift mask. Some folks really will risk death for the right prize. Even knowing these pale fruits are highly dangerous, he cannot walk away. He turns into a silent farmer, harvesting away in the quiet, creepy woods. Packing his bag until it weighs a ton, he wipes the sweat from his brow. He is incredibly grateful for his dagger. Without it, this would be impossible. Safely back inside the train, he runs an appraisal. The system identifies them instantly. These are level 3 white forest fruits. In their raw state, they release a hallucinogenic scent that drains a person's spirit, and eating them would permanently decrease their maximum spirit limit, but if soaked in cold water for 5 minutes, they rapidly restore mental energy and slightly boost hallucination resistance. He pats his chest in relief, feeling as though he has narrowly escaped disaster. This is a necessary wake-up call. He thought he was being cautious, but he must do better. He eagerly dumps the harvest into the water tank. After 5 minutes, they transform from gray-white to a brilliant, glowing white. He takes a bite, and an explosion of incredibly sweet juice fills his mouth. It is delicious, far better than any fruit he has ever tasted. Compared to this, his dry bread and biscuits feel Like cardboard, pure joy sparks in his eyes as he realizes this goldmine. He empties his pack of other supplies, grabs his 2 guns and dagger, and heads right back out. Each round trip takes about 20 minutes and filling. The bag takes another 10. With only 4 hours total, he has no time to waste. As he walks out, he spots the trash recycling device he built actually operating. A tiny cube-shaped robot, barely calf-high, is shuttling between the forest and the train, bringing back leaves and stones. It looks pretty useless to him, but since it is already active, he lets it be. He spends the next few hours in a whirlwind of activity, his dagger flashing as he strips tree after tree. By the time the clock hits the final 30 minutes, he has gathered over 100 pounds of fruit. It is tough to leave, not knowing if he will ever find this exact delicacy again, but he refuses to let greed make him miss the train's departure. He leans back in his seat, eating a fruit while organizing his supplies. He has his harvest, 79 biscuits and 21 bottles of clean water. For now, survival is no longer an issue. He opens the chat room to see how other players are doing, and the numbers instantly freeze him cold. 8,721 remain out of 10,000. Over 1,000 dead already, and they are only at the second station. This is getting brutal. The messages are pure misery. People dying from drinking raw lake water, others with punctured lungs from wild beast attacks, and many more begging for medicine or food. Modern medical luxuries are long gone. A simple wound can mean a death sentence. While he used his crossroads of fate to find a safe harvesting zone, others are being chased by boars or trapped in toxic mud. As his own countdown nears its end, he remembers the little recycling robot. He figured if it gathered 10 kilograms of wood, it would be a complete miracle. He walks back to the station with absolutely zero expectations, only to suddenly freeze in his tracks. Among the literal trash lies a pale gray wooden box, a level 3 treasure chest. He absolutely cannot believe his eyes. He had not dared venture deep into the woods for fear of getting lost, yet this tiny machine wandered off and found exactly what he needed. He pats its square head with newfound appreciation, feeling a bit guilty for ever doubting it. It was worth every resource he had spent. He resists the urge to open it immediately. A level 3 chest, if sublimated, becomes level 4, guaranteeing far better coins and much rarer items. His stats are at 45 stamina and 92 mental energy. He gives the order to sublimate, feeling that familiar, heavy drain pulling at his very soul. When it finished, he was physically exhausted, mentally soaring. With a creak, he opened the level 4 treasure chest. The rewards, staggering: 8 train coins and external alert tower system, white forest fruit seeds, and a gray-white paint scheme, along with an advanced ceramic bulletproof vest. He stood there marveling at the loot, knowing how envious the global chat would be. Talk about a massive haul. But he kept quiet. Bragging only breeds enemies. He noticed he could not sublimate these new items further. The cost was beyond his current total capacity. It seemed level 4 was a major threshold. He immediately installed the alert tower atop his locomotive, a highly sophisticated piece of tech that could equip ranged weapons and provide automated defense within 100 meters, even seeing right through invisibility. He equipped 5 of his remaining rifles to it. Instantly, his sense of security skyrocketed. As for those seeds, they required special white forest soil and 30 days to mature, consuming half a kilogram of fresh water daily. A steep price, but he was one of the few who could afford it. In the final 3 minutes before departure, he scrambled to fill several crates with the gray soil the seeds required. He also processed the trash his robot had gathered, gaining some wood and white pigments from the leaves and stones. As the train began to move, he watched the white forest recede into the distance, back to the wilderness. But this time, he was much stronger. He stretched leisurely, noticing his private messages blinking. There was only one person on his friend list, Shang Guanyinj, asking if he still needed water. He typed out a message, making his position clear from the start. He asked what she needed, but warned her up front that he did not have any firearms left to trade. He waited a long time without a reply, eventually assuming she decided against the deal. Just as he was about to close the private chat, a message finally blinked onto the screen. She apologized for the delay, explaining she had just been taking a bath. He stared at his own water tank, completely stunned. Just how much water did she have to waste? Honestly, talk about a major flex. Even with his success, he never dreamed of being that extravagant. He told her it was no problem, and asked what she wanted to trade, reminding her of his lack of guns. On the other side, inside Shang Guan Yinja's train, a black-haired girl with waist-length hair stood up from a large wooden tub that dominated most of her carriage. As she tied up her hair, her light blue eyes remained calm and unreadable. She sent over a list: 32 kilograms of wood, 50 kilograms of metal, and 40 mechanical parts. She added she was fairly certain he had those items. He raised an eyebrow at the screen, not answering directly. Instead, he questioned why she was so sure he had them, and even if he did, why he wouldn't just use them for his own train upgrades. She replied that she simply hated trouble. She had gathered some materials herself, but dealing with too many people took up way too much time. She had calculated that he was likely the only one capable of providing bulk materials right now. After all, he had sold over 20 rifles, receiving those resources in exchange instead of just food and water. She was right, though little did she know he had already sold over 40. He held the exact resources she wanted, but trading them for simple water did not interest him anymore. His own reserves were solid. He had plenty of water for now, and other survivors were already discussing dirty workarounds. They talked about boiling lake water to purify it, which was a method he avoided. It was a desperate last resort, but it meant raw water was losing its value. Shangyu and Yingsha stayed quiet for a moment while drying off after her bath. Then she dropped a screenshot that completely blew his mind: a level 1 device. A water purification unit capable of filtering 1 kilogram of wastewater every single hour. He rubbed his eyes, staring at the screen. This technology actually existed in this wasteland. This explained her lavish bathing habits. She was just recycling and filtering her water. Since she was offering it up, he suspected she possessed the actual blueprint. He asked her directly, but she kept quiet, neither confirming nor denying anything. She only stated the device itself was worth the materials she was asking for. He hid his excitement. No matter her secrets, he was incredibly lucky to get this. Agreeing to the deal immediately, he inspected the device once the transaction cleared. It fit smoothly right between his wastewater storage tank and his clean water tank. With the switch flipped, clean water would automatically flow straight into his main reserves. This saved him massive headaches. Now, it was time to use his sublimation skill. Since it was a simple level 1 machine, the energy cost was practically nothing. Flash, it upgraded into a premium level 2 system, ready to work wonders. This tripled his hourly output to 3 kilograms and allowed him to purify seawater. Feeling generous after such a huge win, he sent her another quick message. He asked if she had upgraded her train yet and what her options were. Curious, he wanted to see if her upgrade choices matched his own options. She hesitated slightly, but eventually sent over a screenshot of her upgrade list. Her level 2 options included the standard carriage expansion and extended stop times. Those matched his exactly, but her random choices were a welding tool set and a basic wooden bed blueprint. This confirmed his theory about the system. The carriage and time upgrades were fixed, but other choices were totally random. Honestly, her choices were far worse than the high-tier options he got. While he processed this, she suddenly asked if he had any train coins. He lied and said no, but then she asked if he wanted more water. His mouth twitched, knowing she was recycling her bath water ruined the appeal. Gross, he politely declined the offer and immediately closed their chat screen. She obviously wanted his coins to buy her upgrades, but he was short too. He had one critical decision left to make: the train acceleration device. The blueprint cost 5 train coins, a massive sum for any normal survivor. But for him, he actually had more than enough to cover it. He finalized the purchase, leaving him with 4 coins. Now he needed 50 kilograms of metal and 200 mechanical parts to build this acceleration device. It would produce speed bullets that tripled train speed for 10 minutes straight. Expensive, but totally worth the price. Meanwhile, the trading platform was rapidly evolving. Even with new items appearing, basic food and water were still highly prized. Suddenly, those barrels of plain compressed biscuits he ignored earlier looked like pure gold. He smiled to himself, time to cash in on everyone else's desperation. He glances at the meager resources he finally managed to scrape together. It took him 7 biscuits and a lot of effort to pry those mechanical parts from other survivors. Now he understands why Shang Wu and Ying Shuer hates trading, haggling with people, and constantly shifting prices over tiny scraps of food is just an exhausting waste of time. he feeds the materials into the processing station. And the blueprint for the acceleration device begins to emit a deep sapphire glow right before his eyes. Metal and machinery fuse, coalescing into a complex mechanical heart. The system notes that the train burst acceleration device can only be installed on the main frame near the control panel. Once integrated, it will produce acceleration bullets, limited to 3 uses each day. His heart sinks when he sees the cost: 1 kilogram of metal, 20 mechanical parts, and 1 train coin per bullet. Even the ammunition requires hard currency. He wonders what a little sublimation would do to it. With his stamina at 55 and spirit at 70 after eating white forest fruits, he knows he has enough for 1 clean attempt. He pours 30 stamina and 40 spirit into the device. He watches it transform into the red triple-speed train acceleration device. The maximum capacity increases to 5 bullets daily, though the potential for further sublimation is now fully exhausted. Following the system prompt, he places it near the control panel. A silvery light swallows the device, and a sleek black loading port materializes on the console. Talk about a pricey investment. He spends 2 of his remaining coins to produce 2 silvery shells, each as thick as a baby arm. He winces at the expense while tucking his last 2 coins away. He is tempted to test the speed, but stops himself. It is not time for that yet. Sleep first. As he drifts off, he wonders if the low spirit side effects were actually real. He felt completely fine. Then he wakes up. Both stamina and spirit are fully restored to 100. He stretches happily in the warmth of the climate-controlled carriage, washing his face while humming a quiet tune. Walking to the back, he checks on the seed he buried in the ashen soil. It is unchanged, so he decides to see if sublimation can jumpstart its growth. It costs him 30 stamina points. But the result is a blessed white forest fruit seed. The growth cycle plummets from 30 days to just 3 to sprout and 3 to mature. Better yet, it will produce 1 blessed fruit daily once ripe. He buries it back in the dirt and gives it some water, feeling quite satisfied. On his way back to the front, he stops by the garbage recycling robot. He did promise to upgrade the little guy after all. He crouches down and knocks on its oversized matchbox head, calling for a sublimation. Strangely, the stamina he funnels into the machine simply vanishes with 0 effect. Frowning at his first failure, he immediately tries again, this time using spirit. For 40 spirit points, a familiar radiance envelops the machine. It becomes the GT1 automatic treasure hunting robot. Its job is simple. It will automatically leave the train at stations to locate treasure chests, mapping out any ones it cannot carry. Back, it costs 1 train coin per use, and forcibly returns before the train departs. Camel-like eyes emerge from the box, rotating 360 degrees. Before locking onto his face to confirm his ID, it asks for a name, and he couldn't help but think of an old-world movie character, naming it Wally. It immediately entered sleep mode, waiting for a coin to wake it up at the next station. Between the expensive bullets and this robot, he was heading straight for financial ruin. He realized most players here did not understand the true value of train coins yet. Everyone else was still just trying to find enough bread to survive another day. He quickly checked the public chat room to see if his theory was right. Sure enough, players were opening chests and wondering if the coins were just useless future currency. Seizing this golden opportunity, he decided to post a highly profitable trade. He offered 1 compressed biscuit and a single bottle of water for 1 train coin. If someone took the bait, great. If not, no loss. By 12:30 p.m., fate called again. A crossroads prompt appeared, forcing him to choose his next destination carefully. His options were a level 2 goblin village, a hunting station, or doomsday town. To him, a level 2 mission station sounded like a massive opportunity. It was far better than dealing with the mindless hassle of slaying cheap goblins. He locked in his choice, feeling the train lurch forward into high speed. The world ahead dissolved into white noise until the countdown finally hit 0. He looked out at Doomsday Town as the 4-hour docking countdown began. But the system's final warning sat heavy. This was no ordinary station. It was labeled as dangerous. The train hissed to a halt in the eerie quiet. He peered through the glass windows, carefully surveying his harsh new surroundings. This place was a total, shocking contrast to the pitch-black tunnels from before. The scorching sun hung high in the sky, casting an unforgiving glare over everything. The view was haunting. Deep red bloodstains marred the cracked asphalt below. Rows of rusted, abandoned vehicles completely choked the wide streets. Doomsday Town, the name fit perfectly. He turned to his tiny metal companion. It was time for Wally to get to work, though he winced feeding it a coin. He watched the little bot wobble away through the train's recycling chute. A small part of him worried some lurking monster might snatch it up like a toy. But he had his own problems to worry about. He needed to find his mission. The answer presented itself soon enough as he scanned the area outside. Through the window, he spotted a corpse slumped nearby, its cold fingers clutching a bag. A piece of parchment tucked inside the backpack flapped rhythmically in the hot wind. It was too far away to read, so he did a quick gear check. He had food, water, and his finely crafted rifle slung over his shoulder. His black gloss pistol and sharp dagger sat ready at his waist. Most importantly, he wore the advanced ceramic vest he had scavenged earlier. He had streamlined the bulky, bucket-like armor into a form-fitting vest. It sacrificed absolutely none of its original protective strength. Fully armed, he pressed the release button, making the heavy doors hiss open. He stepped out, closing them behind him with a quick flick of his wrist. Since only the conductor could operate them, he did not worry about intruders. No one was sneaking inside. Instantly, a wave of scorching heat rolled over him. It carried a sickening stench, like rotten salted fish and long decayed bread. Slowly approaching the body, he used the long barrel of his rifle to nudge the backpack. He carefully nudged the bag open so he could finally read the parchment inside. The note claimed the deceased was a legendary courier for the Run Company. Looking at his corpse, no greatness remained, only dry bones. The writer clearly had a pretty dark sense of humor, laughing right in the face of death. He was dying, but insisted the courier's mission must never be broken. The task itself was simple: deliver a mysterious bag to a silverware shop in town. It sat in the southeast corner, promising a massive reward upon safe arrival. All he had to do was show the badge. Intrigued, he peeked inside. Inside the old bag sat a birthday cake, sealed in a remarkably well-preserved transparent box. Happy Birthday was written across the top in jam, a forgotten celebration. Judging by the rotting corpse, that birthday was a very long time ago. Still, even if the party was over, a fresh cake was definitely worth taking along. He also grabbed a mechanical badge featuring a gear-driven courier. A map of the town lay inside too, with a bright red dot marking his final destination. Map in hand, he began a quiet trek through roads littered with ancient skeletons. Dark red stains whispered of old horrors, but check this out, he spotted movement. A mutated hyena was feeding on a cold corpse, the first living creature in this wasteland. But when it turned its head, he saw its completely rotted skull. This was no regular wild beast, it was an undead zombie dog growling fiercely at him. As it lunged, he forced himself to stay calm and fight the panic. He raised his pistol and pulled the trigger repeatedly, firing in desperation. He was no marksman, but at this extremely close range, a single bullet hit home. The blast was powerful enough to blow the mutated beast completely to pieces. Loud gunfire would act like a dinner bell for every single monster in the area. A quiet detour got him there without any trouble. Surprisingly, the entire surrounding area remained completely silent as he stood before the closed shutter. He wondered if anyone was actually left alive to receive this delivery. Right as he prepared to pry it open, the heavy metal shutter slid up a crack. He immediately leveled his rifle at the gap. A hoarse voice begged him. The voice claimed to be human, pleading with him not to shoot. He backed up, announced himself as a Run Company courier, and quickly flashed the badge. Out here, a professional title commanded far more respect than a stranger. A scruffy bearded man in his 40s peered out, laughing dryly at the traveler's bravery. Only couriers, madmen, and monsters wandered the streets these days, he laughed. The bearded man kindly invited him inside, but he still kept his rifle aimed directly at his head. Taking no chances, he handed over the cake and demanded his promised reward. The man stared at the cake with deep pain, muttering a quiet regret. He retreated back inside the dusty shop, returning a moment later holding a small wooden box. Inside were 3 train coins, just as he suspected, the universal currency. But right as he reached for his payment, things took a dark turn. The man suddenly lunged forward, grabbing the cold metal gun barrel with pure murderous intent. Without a single second of hesitation, the alert traveler pulled the trigger. A loud blast echoed, severing the hand and blowing the shutter open. The figure standing there was no longer human, swelling rapidly into a giant, horrific monster. His face twisted in rage as he screamed about his little girl. He cursed the useless couriers for arriving way too late to save her. He took a deep breath, centered himself, and kept firing, 3 rounds. Struck, but the monster's thick hide completely shrugged off the upgraded weapons. Power, a massive fist slammed into his chest, sending him flying. He gritted his teeth and forced himself up, stomach churning, if not for his enhanced vest. That single blow would have ended him. The monster shrieked and charged again. He fired another round, but the beast just laughed, claiming the bullets could not scare him. He smirked, telling the beast to look down. The monster paused, seeing his body riddled with holes he had not even felt. No second chances, he quickly drew his black light enchanted pistol, pulsing with an eerie glow, converting his stamina into armor-piercing rounds. He stepped close and pressed the muzzle straight to the beast's forehead. One final bang and it was over. Silence returned, he realized. Why no other monsters lurked nearby. This was the big guy's territory. After catching his breath, he retrieved the cake and the 3 train coins, feeling a flicker of regret for the waste of it all. He opened the shutter fully to find a clean silverware shop packed with silver crossbow bolts and spearheads. On a dusty shelf, he found a diary. The entries told a heartbreaking story. A father finding coins in a broken locomotive, trying to buy a birthday cake to cure his sick daughter. By March 11th, she had died without ever tasting anything sweet. By March 15th, the poor man lost his mind entirely. He walked to the backyard, found the small tombstone the father had erected, and placed the cake before. It felt like the only way to truly finish this mission, but the diary left him with a chilling thought. A broken locomotive outside town. Was it a conductor who had come before them? The idea that they were not the first survivors in this game weighed heavily on his chest. He scavenged what he could, a crossbow and several silver items. They were heavy, but they felt incredibly important. On his return trip, the town crawled with active monsters, and he realized how much he needed that extra hour his upgrade provided. He saw zombie animals of all kinds, but curiously no humanoid ones. Back at the train, he checked the time. He still had 35 minutes. He checked his haul: mythal bolts, a mythal cross, and a mythal sword, all level 2. He recycled the scraps into 10 kilograms of raw mythal fortune in his old world. He decided to upgrade the cross, turning it into level 3 sanctified mythal cross that emitted holy light. As for the other weapons, he knew his limits. He was no swordsman, and his aim with a crossbow was even worse than with a pistol. He hung the cross at the front of the train and checked the trading platform. Someone had finally accepted his offer for train coins. He sat back, eating some fruit and admiring his new coins before opening the chat. Grim numbers, only 7,825. Out of 10,000, another 1,000 people were gone. Most still struggled for the barest essentials. While he was sitting on a pile of mythal and enchanted weapons, the chat was a chaotic mess of fear and confusion. As survivors recounted their experiences at the 3rd station, someone spoke of a cave crawling with spiders they had not dared to enter, while another boasted of using a gun purchased from an expert to fend off wild dogs and secure Emil, his ears perked up at the mention of an expert. His reputation was growing, though some were quick to dismiss him. One voice insisted he was calling him short-sighted and claiming his big brother, Li Zio Sheng, was the real authority. Rumor claimed Li Zio Sheng was about to hit level 2. Our protagonist remembered him well. The man had confidently bragged about reaching level 2 within just 3 stations. Yet here they were at the 3rd stop, and the guy was only now announcing his success. He even posted a screenshot of his upgrade options, inviting others to join his alliance. He targeted anyone with train coins, promising food and water to any early recruits. But our main character ignored the posturing and focused on the raw data. His options included a carriage blueprint, an automatic fishing rod, and survival rations. There was also a 1-hour stop extension. Just as expected, the 1st and 4th choices matched his own. The pattern was incredibly clear. While those survival rations were totally useless to him, that automatic fishing rod seemed pretty useful for any future water-based stations. Still, he felt absolutely no rush to buy it, not when he had a trick up his sleeve. With the Crossroads of Fate module, he got a 30-minute information head start. It was time to consider another train sublimation. He had been holding off, just to recover his stamina and stack up some more train coins. Between the silverware shop loot and his savings, he had 4 coins. If Wally found a chest here, he would be set, but just as he got ready, a strange clanking noise outside caught his attention. He peered out the window. and saw Wally wobbling back through the recycling chute, clutching a candy box. Stained with dark red marks, the little robot was covered in deep bite marks. Clearly the work of something far more vicious than a normal animal. He followed the robot's trail with his eyes and spotted dozens of zombie dogs circling the train. They were followed by mutated giants, just like the shop owner he had recently killed. He gave Wally's head a helpless tap. The bot led monsters straight to his door. Still, it brought back a level 2 treasure chest, so he couldn't be too angry. He picked up the box, completely unconcerned by the growing horde gathering right outside. This was only a level 2 station, and his train had a massive upgrade. It featured a level 4 defensive sentry tower, absolute overkill. As the monsters crossed the 100-meter perimeter, the red orb atop the tower locked on. Crimson target circles painted the ground as long rifle barrels slid out from the shadows. Instantly, the air filled with the steady crack of gunfire. Every single shot hit a weak point. In less than 10 seconds, the entire clearing was littered with dead bodies. He watched the scene with detached calm, casually munching on a white forest fruit. As more monsters swarmed in, only to have their skulls shattered by the tower's perfect marksmanship. When the countdown hit 0, the train lurched forward into motion. It slipped quietly into the void, leaving the grim ruins of Doomsday Town far behind. They entered the familiar, endless wilderness. The onboard broadcast suddenly chimed. It announced the newbie protection period was over. Survival mode was now active. A cold voice warned everyone to be extremely cautious at night. Any train moving slower than 30 kilometers per hour would enter a highly dangerous state. While the chat room erupted in absolute panic, he stayed focused on his own notifications. He had achieved an A-grade elimination rating for this station. He completed a hidden mission, Town Liberator. His reward was a car exchange ticket. He patted Wally's head, realizing he would have missed this completely without the bot's mistake. Without hesitation, he decided to sublimate the ticket first. He transforms it into a special car exchange ticket for a level 2. Once activated, a basic storage carriage descends from the sky and locks directly onto his train, providing 48 massive slots that can store unlimited amounts of cargo, finally clearing the clutter from his living quarters. But he is not done, moving to the end of the new carriage and starting another sublimation to reach level 3, though it costs 25 stamina and 25 mental energy, plunging him back into exhaustion. Yet the reward is a storage carriage that keeps items from ever decaying, while offering 3 special slots accessible from anywhere as a portable inventory. He tests it by placing fruits into a unit and successfully manifesting them back in his hand inside the locomotive. This is an incredible upgrade. Exhaustion tugged at him, but he still has the level 2 chest. Wally found, pushing through the haze, he spends 45 mental energy points to upgrade it into a level 3 chest. Warnings of mental collapse flash red in his vision, but he only feels heavy, numbing fatigue. He pries the box open to find 6 train coins and a zombie slayer chainsaw sword, 3 virus serums, and a windproof lighter, with 10 train coins. Now in his possession, he is easily the wealthiest conductor alive. Talk about a major flex. He has the resources to claim every upgrade option when his train levels up, but right now his body is screaming for rest. He pushed himself to the absolute limit, reaching a state of exhaustion he has never known before. While he sleeps, the rest of the world scrambles. Other conductors are desperately trading for metal and parts to upgrade their wheels to hit 30 kilometers per hour, even if it means completely sabotaging their long-term progress. Meanwhile, Lai Zio sits in his carriage with a darkened expression. He has a resource radar ability that lets him pinpoint materials, yet someone is still somehow faster than him. Sharp rhythmic cracks of gunfire suddenly through the silent wilderness. The loud noise forces him to drag his heavy eyelids open, and instinctively glancing out the window, his heart immediately skips a beat. Dozens of glowing crimson eyes cut through the pitch black night, relentlessly chasing his train, and the sheer terror snaps him wide awake instantly. He scrambles to the front of the locomotive, finding his automated alert system has already hummed to life with its red sensors. Swiveling, he suddenly recalls the grim announcement that followed the third station. This has to be the nighttime danger they were warned about. The system identifies the pursuers as level 1 Blood Moon Wolves, noting their chasing speed is 25 kilometers per hour. Seeing this, he feels the tension in his chest loosen. Slightly, as long as his train maintains a speed above 30 kilometers per hour, he is not in actual danger of being overtaken, and since his level 2 train cruises at 40 kilometers per hour, these beasts have no hope of catching him. He splashes cold water on his face, letting the freezing wind from the vents clear the remaining fog from his brain. It is 1:44 a.m., and any lingering sleepiness is gone. He opens the chat room to check on the others, but as he sees the numbers, his eyes contract in shock. Just 4,130 remaining. He recalls the count being around 7 or 8,000 earlier that day, meaning over 4,000 people were slaughtered in the wilderness while he slept, and that number kept ticking down. A cold chill that had nothing to do with the weather ran down his spine. The night was deadlier than the stations. Anyone who had not managed to boost their speed was essentially served up as prey. Only the ones who survived this terrifying night could truly call themselves survivors. And get this, the days of hiding inside the train were officially over. To live, they had to explore, harvest, and upgrade, or die. A private message blinked on his screen. It was Shangyuan Yingshuer asking if he was still alive. He told her he had just woken up and asked if she wanted to trade. She was searching for ammunition, but he had to turn her down. Between that third station massacre and the guard tower defense, he had burned through over 70 rounds. He only had about 300 left, and he could not risk his own safety. She asked if he had a bullet blueprint, and when he told her he did not, she offered a characteristically quick goodbye. Their exchange was refreshingly simple. He sat back and checked his personal stats, noticing something completely impossible. His spirit had recovered to 110. He rubbed his eyes and even pinched himself to make sure he was not dreaming, but the sting was real. His spirit cap had actually increased. He could not recall doing anything special before bed besides hitting total exhaustion. But he pushed the confusion aside for now. This upgrade was a massive gift, and he was not going to question it. It was time. Having cleared 3 stations, the train was ready for its next level of sublimation. He touched the control panel and felt the floodgates open as his stamina and spirit began to drain rapidly. While the first upgrade was cheap, this one took a massive toll. His stamina dropped to 52 and his spirit to 50, but the notification confirmed the success. The train was now level 3. He glanced at the requirements for level 4 and felt a headache coming on. 300 kilograms of wood, 300 parts, 450 of metal, plus exotic materials like gold, mithril, and even a fire stone. He turned his attention to the immediate rewards. His speed had jumped to 60 kilometers per hour, and the chassis, wheels, and frame reached level 3. But the real prizes were those upgrade options and the record-breaking module card he just earned. He opened up the options, seeing a conductor module for early departure, a level 3 bullet blueprint, and a level 3 power generator blueprint. Talk about perfect timing. He desperately needed bullets, and that generator would be vital later. Even with his 10 coins, he could not afford everything, so he had to plan carefully. He spent 8 coins on that early departure privilege, the bullet blueprint, and some extra docking time. That bullet blueprint required metal and gunpowder, but since gunpowder was so scarce on the trading platform, he decided to wait on crafting. Instead, he focused on the early departure module. He immediately sublimated it, turning it into the VIP early departure privilege, which allowed him to leave any station whenever the docking clock hit the final 3 hours. Finally, he looked at the new conductor module card. It was blood red with an abstract eye pattern, looking far more ominous than his previous cards. However, he was running on absolute fumes. The constant cycle of brutal survival and sublimation had left him in a state of perpetual fatigue. He decided to hold onto the card and let deep sleep take him. While he slept, the chat became a graveyard of pleas. Survivors realized 30 kilometers per hour was not nearly enough against the faster monsters. At 6:30 a.m., a chilling broadcast arrived. The next night of survival was starting in 3 days. Speed was everything now. Anyone moving under 40 kilometers per hour faced certain death, meaning a level 2 upgrade was mandatory. Lai Sheng watched the panic spread around with a smug grin on his face. Armed with his resource radar talent, he felt completely untouchable. He used the panic to grow his alliance, promising to help other players upgrade. He wondered who beat him to the first upgrade, sending a request. He arrogantly assumed our protagonist would eagerly join him, but the protagonist just woke up at 8:34. Sore from sleeping on the hard floor, he ate a white forest fruit and checked his sapling. That 40 kilometers per hour limit did not scare him at all. But the weather did, with heavy, dark clouds choking the sky and weighing down on everything. He picked up the red conductor module card, ready to finally put it to use. His stamina sat at 82, while his mental energy reached 110, making it time. He activated his talent, whispering the command to sublimate the card. The card quickly transformed into the advanced judgment of gunfire. A strange, deep clarity suddenly flooded into his mind as he drew his heavy pistol. All clumsy weight instantly vanished, making him feel like a seasoned master marksman. This module allowed him to consume mental energy to easily judge any target. He would deal damage based entirely on their sins, knowing every single shot would hit. From now on, every single bullet would land exactly where he wanted them to go. Directly inheriting these incredible sharpshooter skills changed his game completely. He no longer needed to frantically dodge or run from monsters. After absorbing his new rewards, he ate some fruit while opening his private chat interface. With his rapidly growing reputation, he figured survivors would seek him out. He wanted to trade for blueprints and coins. It would be a massive shame to miss out on valuable trade offers. Then he spotted a private message from Li Zio Sheng, the guy from the 3-station area. The guy invited him to join an alliance, which felt incredibly sketchy. After hesitating, he decided to accept the request anyway. They were definitely not cut from the same cloth, but trading with him was perfectly fine. Trading was perfectly fine, as long as he did not get too involved. Meanwhile, Li Zio Sheng was busy competing with others to sell his brand new fishing rods. Seeing the accepted request, the guy assumed our protagonist was reaching out of pure desperation. But our protagonist cut straight to the point, demanding to know if the rods were finished. The seller dodged the question, asking if he could actually afford the steep price. He even offered to give him one for free, with a catch. Alliance members had to contribute either 5 kilograms of wood or a single train coin. In exchange, he promised to provide daily rations alongside the completed fishing rod. He went on a long-winded rant about supplies eventually running dry, and why they needed to arm all their members to quickly build the ultimate faction. Our protagonist quietly finished his fruit before typing back a very simple ultimatum. Was he selling the fishing rods or not, because he was not the only source? Someone else had already found a mechanical rod blueprint at the first station. With the first seller silent, he didn't waste time waiting. He quickly found another trader, a man named Ziolan, and their deal went down fast. For 20 mechanical hearts and 1 simple biscuit, he secured a fully automated mechanical fishing rod. Light years ahead of any basic wooden pole, he immediately initiated a sublimation, upgrading it into a sleek, alluring mechanical fishing rod that needed no bait and practically guaranteed a catch. Setting it aside, he saw that Jalen had sent a friend request, which he accepted. At 12:30 p.m., a massive roar ripped through the gloomy sky. Inside his climate-controlled carriage, he watched heavy black clouds choke the atmosphere. A lone raindrop, then a massive torrent. The train speaker crackled to life, announcing a thunderstorm day and warning that the next station faced similar brutal conditions. It felt weird that the wasteland's wild weather could reach the stations, which usually seemed like separate dimensions entirely. He checked his crossroads of fate for the 4th stop. The choices were the level 3 Thunderstrike Goblin Tribe, a hunting zone, or the level 3 Mist Vale Manor, a mission site. Levels were climbing in this endless spawn of goblins made him wonder if he had some weird link to them. Still, he had zero desire to enter a hunting zone that practically screamed danger. So he chose the manor, even though his last mission was a total nightmare. The train accelerated, space dissolved, thunder swallowed everything. The engine vanished, docking countdown initiated 5 hours. A brutal warning flashed, hazardous. Looking through the window, he saw they stood on a ruined mountain highway in a relentless storm. Talk about a creepy welcome. Lightning lit up a smoking police cruiser nearby. Seeing the uniformed bodies, he hoped zombies weren't back on the menu. He prepared for the worst anyway, booting up Wally, feeding it one of his last 2 coins, and watched the little bot roll out into the freezing rain. Time for final gear checks, auditing his special inventory for rations, ammo, and those crucial virus serums, which basically worked like supercharged healing potions. Armed with his pistol, rifle, dagger, vest, and the mythical cross, and clad in a traded raincoat, he stepped out into the storm, checking the smashed police car and nearby corpses. They weren't reanimating, which was a relief. Beside one officer, he found a voice recorder. The device mentioned a tycoon named Ravi who had died at Rainville Villa on Davo Mountain. The local cops hated investigating this middle-of-nowhere estate, but the tycoon's rich daughter offered serious cash. They even talked about framing a simple housemaid if they couldn't find the actual killer. It seemed like a surface-level mission. He found 2 handguns and some low-grade ammo inside, tossing them back to the train since they were useless to him, taking the police chief's ID and official badge. He headed up the winding road. In 15 minutes he reached the iron gates of a massive black estate. A nervous guard rushed over, and his disguised identity was enough to convince him to let him in. He begged him to find the real killer, insisting the maid was responsible for his master's death. The guard explained that Ravi died 4 nights ago, but they couldn't call for help until 3 days ago due to the storm. It sounded like a classic locked room mystery, but he doubted a level 3 station would be so mundane. As they approached the castle, a shrill scream echoed from above. A female corpse plummeted through the air and crashed into the lawn. In the flash of lightning, he saw a shadow that definitely wasn't human, and the mythical cross on his chest began to emit heat. The guard screamed that the maid was dead. An elderly butler ran out, and the terrified guard fled into the night, accusing the old man of being the killer. The butler sighed, calling him chief and noting how young he looked. He picked up the maid's body and tossed it into one of 5 pre-dug graves on the lawn, 3 of which were already occupied. He invited him inside, and the sensation of being watched made his skin crawl. Inside, he asked for hot water and pressed him for the truth. The butler explained that after the master died 4 days ago, the children had argued. The daughter was found dead the next morning, which drove the guard mad. On the 3rd day, the young master died. 2, he admitted he expected to die soon as well, which is why he had dug all 5 graves. He warned him that the estate was cursed and that he should leave, but his bloodshot eyes under the candle light were unsettling. The mystery had clearly turned supernatural. He gripped his cross, knowing he'd have left already if he didn't have it. He asked why he was still there, and he gave a mournful smile, explaining that he couldn't leave. The gates wouldn't let him pass. He had told the guard not to let him in, but it was too late now. He apologized, adding that if he found himself unable to leave either, he would dig a grave for him too. He asked what this curse actually meant. The old butler stood momentarily stunned, his gaze fixed on his face. Despite his youth, he clearly saw no trace of the fear he expected. He asked him, almost in disbelief, if he wasn't afraid. He simply stood up, his eyes tracking the solid wood stairs that spiraled into the upper reaches of the castle. He told him that he had forgotten to mention a small detail. Besides being a police chief, he also worked part-time as a priest. Since things had reached this point, he explained he wouldn't be leaving easily. To prove his point, he pulled the mythical sanctuary cross from his chest pocket. A gentle, holy light immediately surged forth, dispelling the surrounding gloom and casting him in a glow that made him look like a deity's spokesperson. The old man's mouth fell open. He rubbed his eyes hard, staring at him as if he were a miracle. It took him a long moment to regain his senses, even after the light faded, and he cleared his throat to get his attention. He finally gasped out a plea to the heavens, declaring that they were saved with his new identity as a part-time priest. Firmly established, the old butler wasted no time in spilling the manor's dark history. It turned out the original owner was a bloodthirsty madman. He had once used his own maid as a scapegoat for his crimes, throwing her to a corrupt police chief who tortured and eventually executed her. Following her death, the manor was swallowed by an eternal storm of thunder and rain. When it finally cleared, every soul inside, including the treacherous police chief, had died an unnatural death. Over the next 30 years, the manor changed hands a dozen times, and every owner met a violent end on a rainy night. Ravi, the current owner, was a cheapskate who never believed in ghosts. He saw tax-free mansion at a bargain price and just couldn't resist. Now the cycle was repeating: the rain, the isolation, and the deaths. The butler noted that the only difference this time was they successfully reached him, hoping he could finally break the curse. He asked him where the first maid had died, and he pointed toward the clock tower at the castle's highest point. He already knew his path. This curse was likely a restless spirit bound to the stone and soil, and as long as his cross could overpower it, the mission was basically Solved, he didn't dwell on the possibility of failure, that kind of. Thinking was pointless. He grabbed an oil lamp and followed the butler up the stairs. The castle was a symphony of cold, damp echoes and the rhythmic dripping of leaks, but when they reached the clock tower, the cross in his palm began to pulse with a sudden, intense heat. He knew they had arrived. The butler stayed back, paralyzed by fear, so he gritted his teeth and stepped into the tower alone. The moment he crossed the threshold, he felt something lock onto him, rushing through the air at high speed. He didn't panic, simply telling it to get lost as the mythical sanctuary cross unleashed a blinding, soft light. Piercing scream shattered the night, followed by the metallic clang of something hitting the floor. He looked down to see a smooth, translucent skull resting at his feet. He blinked, wondering if that was really it. He pinched his thigh to make sure he wasn't dreaming, but the pain was real. He searched the room, finding absolutely nothing else. Just like that, it was over. Looking at the cross, he realized he'd probably underestimated its power. For anyone else, the station would have been a total death trap, but his ability to sublimate the level 2 mythical cross into this sanctuary version had given him a weapon the world hadn't prepared for. He exhaled deeply, picking up the skull, even if he didn't know its purpose yet. He wasn't about to leave a level 3 drop behind. When he emerged, the butler was nearly white with ghost-pale terror, but he reassured him that the curse was lifted and showed him the skull as proof. He stammered out his gratitude, though the thunderstorm outside continued unabated. He knew the spirit hadn't caused the storm had likely birthed the spirit. Since the manor seal was gone and he'd only been there an hour, he decided to make the most of his time. This was a wealthy man's home, and while sure there weren't train coins or weapons lying around, it had something far more vital: real food. He was tired of biscuits and fruit. He wanted a real meal. The butler led him to a safe and presented a pure red gemstone, a priceless treasure Ravi had found in his youth. He insisted he take it as a reward, adding that since the master was gone, he was free to take anything else he liked. Honestly, who could say no? He weighed the cool, smooth gem in his hand and told him he'd be heading down the mountain soon. But first he needed to restock his supplies. He raided the kitchen, finding a fridge full of fresh meat, eggs, and vegetables. He began making round trips to the train every 20 minutes, hauling back as much as he could carry. The butler, busy tying up the crazed security guard, looked startled when he reappeared for the third time. When asked if the curse was a problem, he casually replied that the almighty god was simply hungry. On his final trip, the butler called out to him at the iron gate. The guard and butler bowed deeply, handing him a ribbon-tied wooden box. The butler did not mind that the house was cleared out, but he would have regretted letting him leave without this. Inside were 3 train coins. The butler explained they were currency for the run company, sending a sharp shock through him. And honestly, things are getting way too mysterious now. One off. Still, he could not crack that mystery yet. Returning to the train for the last time, he ditched his raincoat and eyed the massive pile of fresh food and kitchenware with a satisfied grin. He stored it all in the lockers to prevent spoilage, immediately firing up the grill for a thick premium steak. As meat sizzled, he placed containers to catch rain water and organized his haul. The skull was now a purified earthbound object, a level 3 item. To ward off evil, while the ruby remained a level 1 valuable, he decided to sublimate the skull immediately, feeling his stamina and spirit drain away until he was nearly running empty. The skull transformed into a perfectly smooth, glowing jade stone, a level 4 pure earthbound relic. This item was an absolute powerhouse. It nullified all evil spirits below its level and absorbed negative effects. Meant for him, it still held potential for growth, but that was a task for another day. With 42 minutes left on the clock, he was enjoying his steak when a familiar wobble echoed, while Ally popped out of the recycling chute with a bloodstained gift box, a level 3 treasure chest. He patted his head, promising him some oil later before the creature went back to hibernate. There was no reason to stay any longer. He ordered the train to depart. As they accelerated through the void and back into the wilderness, the station chat room erupted. Players were losing their minds over the news that monsters would now attack during the day, and that all newbie protection was gone. He ignored the chatter about whether anyone had actually reached level 3 yet. Oh, they are not ready for this. Death toll for Station 4 was lower, with only about 1,000 deaths, but the desperation in the chat was palpable. He focused on the level 3 chest, using his remaining energy to sublimate it into level 4. He speared some steak and wiped his hands, waiting for the lid to open. His last level 4 chest had given him the watchtower. He could only hope this one was just as good. The familiar notification chimed as the level 4 treasure chest yielded its contents along with 8 train coins. He found an observer blueprint, a safety bracelet, and a wind-up monkey doll bomb blueprint, all level 4 alongside mysterious item called a profane card fragment, seeing 2 level 4 blueprints in a single haul was a stroke of luck that far surpassed his previous openings. He eagerly examined the brand new acquisitions. The observer blueprint required a mix of metal, wood, mechanical parts, and electronic components. Once installed, it would act as a highly advanced security system, monitoring every inch of the train and sounding an alarm the moment a foreign presence was detected. It was an excellent facility, though he would need to scour the trading platform for those electronic components. The safety bracelet was even more straightforward, but perhaps more vital. Its brief description promised to block one fatal attack before shattering. In this world, survival is the absolute only currency that truly matters, and as he slid the bracelet onto his right wrist, a sudden warmth washed over him. The monkey doll bomb, however, presented a major logistical hurdle. It required a massive amount of gunpowder, 400 grams per unit. Considering 100 bullets used only 500 grams total, the cost was steep. Shaking his head, frustrated at having blueprints without materials, he realized he would have to take matters into his own hands and buy what he needed. His focus then shifted to the black and gold shard. It was only 1/3 complete. Labeled as a profane card fragment, the system indicated he needed 3 pieces to synthesize the full card, though its ultimate function remained a mystery. It was clearly not ordinary, and getting 2 more fragments would likely require finding more level 4 chests, a daunting task even with his luck. Turning to the trading platform, he found the market completely chaotic. Tiny quantities and inconsistent, predatory pricing were the norm, and he had absolutely no intention of being taken for a fool just because he was wealthy. Truly capable survivors were not giving away essentials like gunpowder. If he wanted results, he had to speak to the masses directly. He spent a train coin to pin a message in the public chat, offering a choice of compressed biscuits and water or a fresh tomato for every 200 grams of gunpowder. He posted a similar request for electronics, offering a bottle of water and a biscuit for every 10. While most people likely had water after the recent thunderstorm, his offer included the comfort of sweetness and the luxury of fresh produce. He had hauled 3 full crates of tomatoes from the 4th station's manor. Think about it, like ancient sailors, they were on a long voyage. Or scurvy was a very real threat. The chat exploded immediately. Many were stunned by the pinned message. Others were scandalized that he would spend a whole train coin just for visibility, and many were salivating over the mention of fresh tomatoes. As he suspected, prepared individuals were among the survivors. Within a short time, he completed 10 trades, securing 2 kilograms of gunpowder. He immediately went to work, manufacturing his first batch of level 3 bullets. They felt much heavier and more significant than the low-level rounds he started with. To test them, he fired a single shot from his black gloss pistol at a stack of metal scrap where his old rounds would have simply pierced the target. This one blew the entire stack apart, and he marveled at the sheer intensity of this power increase. He quickly processed the rest of the gunpowder and stored 999 level 3 bullets in his special storage unit, ensuring he could access them even away from the train. Soon, his private messages began to flicker. All 3 of his closest contacts had reached out. Li Zio Zan was busy with his delusions of grandeur, suggesting they join forces to become the absolute kings of conductors. He ignored him. Zioin, the fishing rod seller, was looking to buy a gun with train coins, a partner worth keeping. Then there was Shangyuan Yingshuer. She asked about his train level, and he gave her a vague answer, simply stating he had just upgraded. She did not press for details, but her interest quickly shifted to his newly acquired gunpowder. She wanted to buy some bullets, knowing she was one of the few who could actually afford a decent price. He offered her 40 bullets for 1 train coin, a middle ground price she reluctantly accepted after some haggling, but he didn't stop there. He offered to sell her a level 2 exquisite sharpshooter rifle for 2 train coins, throwing in 10 extra bullets to sweeten the deal. She gritted Her teeth and agreed, likely feeling as though he knew exactly how many coins she had in her pocket. As a final request, he asked her to use her blueprint to craft him a wooden bed, providing the materials himself. That trade was a massive win. He walked away with 3 more train coins and a proper place to sleep. The rifle was useless to him anyway. With his judgment of gunfire module, his handgun was more than enough for long-range targets. He then turned to Jaelin and sold him several sublimated level 2 rifles for 2 coins each, and even traded some bullets for 5 freshwater fish. His wealth had grown to 16 train coins. After acquiring the necessary electronic components, he built the observer device in the 3rd car. He also finally purchased the energy power generator blueprint for 6 coins. The materials were manageable, and once built, the generator ran on diesel. However, he wasn't about to hunt for oil. So he patted the machine and initiated a sublimation. It transformed into an enchanted omnivorous power generator capable of burning wood, metal, or coal to produce electricity. He tossed in a piece of wood, watching the battery level rise, and finally installed some electric bulbs for the first time since arriving in this world. He lay in a real bed under the glow of electric light. The thunderstorm had passed, leaving the wilderness night lonely but quiet. He counted the darkness until he drifted off. The next morning, dazzling sunlight woke him. He stretched, enjoyed a white forest fruit for breakfast, and headed to the front cabin. The moment he stepped inside, a wall of stifling heat hit him like a physical blow. The morning broadcast confirmed his fears. They had entered a hot wind day. No warning, just a brutal shift. And though it didn't mention a platform change, the temperature was already becoming dangerous. He retreated to the temperature-controlled car to wash his face, dreading the heat. It was a nuisance that the control system was only accessible in the sweltering front cabin, but he had no choice. He logged back into the chat room, finding it already bustling with the voices of survivors who had been forced awake long before he was. In this heat, it seemed he was the only one who had managed to sleep in. The air inside the carriage was stifling, almost like a physical weight pressing down on his chest. He wiped the stinging sweat from his forehead and gulped down an entire bottle of mineral water, trying to ignore the frantic messages scrolling across the chat interface. People were losing their minds, screaming about the 40-degree heat and the way the train had transformed into a literal metal oven. They talked about their mental and physical attributes dropping continuously, driven to the brink of insanity by the sun's relentless beating. He checked his own interface and noted that while his physical stats were indeed dropping to 98, his mental state remained a steady 110. He wondered if his constant consumption of white forest fruits had granted him the kind of resilience others lacked. Suddenly, a sharp gunshot shattered his thoughts. Looking toward the noise, he realized the warning system was already active. Outside, a pack of starved hyenas desperately chased the speeding train, bones practically tearing through their thin fur. With his level 3 speed, they were absolutely zero threat, but the lack of a system broadcast, that is a massive red flag. This encounter was not a timed event like the grueling night survival. It was a random, spontaneous chase, the new normal of the wilderness. Just as the beasts fell back, a ping on his private chat caught his attention. It was Zhao Lin, the female survivor who crafted the automatic fishing rods, asking if he had run into monsters as well. He quickly confirmed it while watching the hyenas finally disappear into the distance. She sounded terrified, explaining that a massive swarm of mutated birds had almost smashed her glass, leaving her barely clinging to life. By pushing her train to 35 kilometers per hour, she desperately needed upgrade materials. But she had run out of coins, pleading to pay him in fresh fish instead. Reading the text, he felt a wave of cold pragmatism. He had plenty of food and absolutely zero interest in running a charity. He declined her offer instantly. But she refused to back down, desperately revealing she possessed a special talent called luck conservation, a bizarre cycle of alternating good and bad fortune. She had struck gold at a fish pond station, but now she was terrified that her next stop would be a total death trap. Can you blame her for panic? That talent was undeniably unique, though he preferred the reliable power of his own sublimation skill. Still, he smelled a great long-term investment opportunity. He asked for her shopping list. She needed 38 kilograms of wood, 22 kilograms of metal, and 14 mechanical parts. In exchange, he wanted her treasure chest plus 10 fish, and he explicitly warned her not to dump any useless blueprints. She agreed in a heartbeat and with a bright flash of light. The transaction went through. Among the delivered items was a level 1 plant nutrient. The boots and fishing line were mediocre, but that growth solution was gold. He wasted no time, immediately using his sublimation skill on it twice. The basic chemical transformed instantly into a glowing, blessed plant elixir. He rushed directly to his climate-controlled carriage, carefully pouring the glowing liquid into the wooden box of his white forestry. What happened next was stunning. A brilliant white light erupted as the tree shot toward the ceiling, its branches instantly heavy with ripe fruit. As the glow faded, he possessed a level 4 blessed white forest tree. It produced 3 fruits daily, and they were now boosted to level 4. This meant he could eat them instantly, bypassing that tedious 5-minute soak. Biting into one, he savored the sweetness, tallying up 55 life-saving fruits. All of them were safely locked away in his special inventory compartment. Later, he relaxed in his cool 22 degrees Celsius sanctuary with steak. While others boiled, his only real complaint was his warm beer. A refrigerator was next. 30 minutes before the 5th station, choices appeared. To his absolute surprise, both available route options were ranked level 4. His choices were the dangerous abyssal Batcave or the mysterious mystic Belltown. That combat label made him hesitate. At level 4 was his gear ready. But any raw advantage might not save him in a direct, bloody clash. He chose to stick with what he knew, selecting the mission station. Soon, the train sped deep into the void, the warm sun vanishing into a quiet, snowy night. Finally, they pulled up to a seemingly ordinary train station. Sticking to his routine, he activated Wally with a coin and watched him wobble away, but just as he got ready to step off, footsteps echoed nearby. He drew his pistol, his tactical gunfire module already calculating potential trajectories. Suddenly, a soft, innocent voice called out from the darkness of the platform. The girl addressed him as Inspector, sounding incredibly relieved he had finally arrived. He hesitated before slowly opening the train door, trusting his defenses to protect him. Out on the snowy platform stood a tiny, fragile figure wrapped in winter gear. She looked about 11 or 12, bundled up tight in a white coat. She peered inside with bright blue eyes, waving and claiming a sister. None promised help. She said they were told a chief inspector would arrive to save them all. Sensing a potential trap, he asked for her name, with a pure smile. She introduced herself as Tina. It seemed his 5th mission was starting early. He had not even stepped off the train yet. Let us see where this leads. Tina stood there, waiting to see what this big city inspector would actually do. She blinked up at him, her eyes carrying a quiet, heavy plea for help. Tina asked if he really was the savior everyone had been waiting so long for. He offered a gentle smile and nodded. After all, if the town expected a savior, and he was the only passenger to step off, he would play the part. Tina cheered happily, urging him to hurry, but he gently told her to wait. He reached into his gear and pulled out a small, ordinary white forest fruit. The little girl grabbed it eagerly, without showing even a hint of fear. She took a bite, her face lighting up at the incredible sweetness of the fruit. He smiled, checking his weapons and donning his protective sanctuary cross at last. He stepped onto the cold platform, sealing the metal doors tightly behind him. With his defense systems set to high alert, he told Tina to lead on. They left the sterile station behind, stepping into a quiet, snow-dusted town. Not a single street lamp lit their path. This place felt completely abandoned. The sole source of light was a single lantern swaying outside a strange church. The building looked bizarrely like an upright train cab. The silence here felt suffocating. He felt hidden eyes watching them from every dark corner. Cold whispers drifted by. This chill had absolutely nothing to do with the freezing mountain air. He kept one hand locked onto his pistol, the other clutching his holy cross. He knew this sector carried a hazard rating far worse than any previous run. Yet little Tina just skipped ahead, a tiny spot of bright color in grayscale. She seemed completely oblivious to the crushing dread hanging over the town. Approaching the church, Tina waved him inside, claiming everyone was waiting for him. He paused at the bottom of the clean, pale steps, deeply uneasy. He told her to walk in ahead of him, as she pushed open the heavy doors. Bright light revealed hundreds of locals sitting silently, their heads bowed in prayer. At the altar stood a blonde nun dressed in black, holding a dark book. Tina loudly announced his arrival, and a heavy silence instantly fell over the room. A sudden vacuum-like silence falls, then, as if puppets controlled by the same string, every head lifts in unison, and hundreds of eyes lock onto him. He doesn't flinch, already having the safety off on his pistol, knowing the slightest move would mean a bullet for the nun. She smiles warmly, telling the residents not to scare him, sending Tina to get things ready. As the prayers resume, the nun approaches him with a box from the pulpit. He levels his weapon at her head. Back off, he demands. What is actually happening here? This place is wrong on every level. Her casual attitude only makes it creepier. She stops, but Nella places the box on the floor. Inside lies a black and gold shard, a fragment of a blasphemy card. The nun prays before the card, her smile steady as she tells him that only those who blaspheme against gods can enter this world. She calls him the inspector before correcting herself to call him a blasphemer, or perhaps a conductor. She asks which stop this town is for him, though his cross doesn't react. To her, he knows he must run. He laughs coldly, only a fool would stay, and bolts back toward the station. She shouts for the town's people to stop him, and the praying residents transform into sprinting hunters with impossible speed. He realizes this stop is going to be a nightmare. He fires a headshot at the lead pursuer, but the nun's voice echoes through the town, mocking his efforts. She claims his bullets are useless against her creations. A mere novice cannot hope to win. Her triumph turns to shock, however, when she feels her connection to the puppet sever. His level 3 armor-piercing rounds are doing what ordinary bullets cannot. With his judgment of gunfire module, his aim is effortless. He is picking them off, creating distance, and it looks like he might actually reach the train. Then, with a soft sigh that chills him to the bone, the nun appears in his path, under 100 meters from the station. She teleported as if she had always been standing right there. She admits her surprise that a level 3 train could defeat her puppets, just as his warning tower hums to life. Before it can fire, black chains lash out and bind the barrels. Talk about a reality check. He realizes he is outmatched. He tries to play it off, suggesting she just take what she wants without the hostility, but she assures him she is not there to hurt him. He helplessly sits on the ground, acknowledging that he cannot run from a woman who controls chains and space itself. She introduces herself as Shah and pulls him to his feet, her slender, elegant figure contrasting with the terrifying power she just displayed. Back inside the church, she shoves the blasphemy card fragment into his hands. He tries to decline such a precious item, sensing the danger attached to it, but she just laughs it off, asking how kind-hearted nun could possibly harm anyone. His skepticism grows when she casually crushes the skull of one of her puppets, a head that required his best ammo to penetrate. He quickly promises her that he will not throw the card away. Shah then asks him what his talent is, and though he remains silent, she claims she is not curious. She is a strange woman, alternating between holy grace and erratic frustration, easily growing annoyed. When he hesitates to ask questions, she teleports in front of him, crushing another puppet's skull to make a point. Pure panic, he hurriedly rattles off a string of questions to satisfy her, but she covers his mouth, telling him to pick just one. She sits cross-legged on a bench, ready to talk. She is a veteran conductor, having arrived in this world 20 years ago. She explains that she was sealed here by someone who erased her station from the records, making it impossible for high-level trains to find her. Only a low-level train like his could enter, though even that should not have reached this platform. She deduces his unique talent is the sole reason he found her, and she warns him never to reveal his abilities or the blasphemy card to anyone. And believe me, she is not exaggerating. Others would hunt him down instantly, and he would end up trapped just like her. He stares at the card, desperately wishing she would take it back. It feels like a literal death sentence. But looking into She's eyes, he knows he is stuck with it. He asks her directly, "She, were you among the first batch of survivors to arrive in this world?" Since she clearly does not intend to kill him, his paralyzing fear begins to ebb away. He decides to be bold and clarify the exact things he needs to know. After all, a senior here for over 20 years must have knowledge far beyond his own, but she simply shakes her head, correcting him. She explains that there were quite a few survivor batches before her time, though they rarely ever encounter them. When he asks why, she snaps her fingers. Several black chains instantly materialize in the air, winding around, assembling themselves into a spectral train track. She reminds him that the entire World is completely infinite, and every station represents a completely different world. In her era, there was a powerful man who wanted to measure the entire wilderness. He united the strongest conductors of that age to gather massive resources and boosted his train's speed to levels even she found hard to imagine. She clicks her tongue, a terrifying number. She mentions that the man had a special module, asking if he knows about them yet, and explains that her chains are a module as well. They are basically magic or sci-fi weapons, the ultimate way for a conductor to enhance their power. But then, she looks at him, noting that as a level 3 conductor, obtaining them is nearly impossible, as they usually only appear in level 5 treasure chests. She gives him a highly scrutinizing gaze, asking if he has somehow already obtained a module from his upgrade options since he shot so accurately. He can only chuckle sheepishly in response. Deep down, he knows the truth. He did obtain a module, but it was not for marksmanship at all. It was the early departure privilege. He asks what happened to that man. She remains silent for a moment before slowly shaking her head. He died, having traveled at that unimaginable speed for a full year without ever encountering another train in the vast wilderness. Then one day his friends Avatar simply graze out, talk about a chilling way to go, signaling his total destruction. But his tragic death was not worthless, she adds, because he traveled for a year without finding anyone. They concluded that the wilderness consists of their own distinct worlds, unless the population in a sector reaches a cert. Without crossing the threshold, they will never meet. Suddenly, Shea pulls out a lollipop. She pops it into her mouth and casually asks Ikian if he wants one. He politely declines, but she just smirks mischievously and tells him he is very welcome, mostly because she was never going to share her very last one. She takes off her nun hat and stands up, completely finished with the topic. She offers to answer one final question before leaving him to figure out the rest himself, warning that his low level means knowing too much will only hurt him. Then, completely contradicting her own warning, she produces yet another lollipop. Before he can even react, she unwraps and stuffs it straight into his mouth. The sweet candy has a slightly bitter kick, and the cooling sensation instantly relaxes him, completely wiping away the exhaustion from his frantic escape. When he calls her out on lying about having only one left, she remarks that the more beautiful a woman is, the better she lies. He crunches down on the candy and asks his final, crucial question. Did she know about the Run Company? He describes what he witnessed in Doomsday Town and Rainville Villa. Shea looks confused, admitting she has never heard of them. Still, if they are active across multiple stations, she notes they are likely a faction set up by veteran conductors who got tired of risking their lives and settled down to control certain stations. Shea warns that their time is running out and offers to show off her train. With a clap of her hands, Tina comes running from behind the church. The little girl happily swings his hand, thanking him for helping them out. Shea casually mentions that Tina is her puppet, her absolute finest creation. He rubs his eyes, staring closely. The puppet looks entirely like a real person. He even pokes her soft cheek, wondering if she was once human. A chilling thought strikes him. Is Shea actually some kind of sealed demonist? He decides he better stay on her good side to avoid becoming a puppet. Suddenly, the church rumbles and shakes. Shea leads Tina to the prayer platform and commands the system to prepare for departure. He watches in a daze as glowing screens flash everywhere. This whole church is actually her locomotive. Shea tosses him a mysterious black box, calling it a reward for helping her open this world, a perfect fit for his current level. The church transforms into a massive locomotive as dark tracks materialize beneath them. In a flash, they are at the station outside town. He is stunned by the sheer speed. His own train crawls like a snail. She reveals she is a level 57 conductor, a legendary rank in her era. She explains that while conductor levels climb high, other things like platforms and chests max out at level 12. After setting the controls, she pokes his cheek and warns him never to let the blasphemy card leave his possession. He senses no malice in her voice, only playful teasing. He promises he won't lose her gift, and she urges him to synthesize his own soon for the tremendous benefits. Finally, she tells him it is time for her to leave. She could have towed his train along, but staying bored forever would be dull. She invites him to enjoy the land until the docking countdown ended. He could now recycle the houses in town as he pleased. Her last request, burn the town down once she departed because she never intended to return to the place that imprisoned her for 15 years. Tina grabbed his hand. Time to disembark. She was just so incredibly cute that he had to pat her head, remembering her love for white forest. Fruit. He pulled out 10 blessed fruits. She was thrilled, and the sweet aroma caught Shea's attention. He heard her muttering about his bizarre blessing aura and how a level 3 train could have such rare carriages. She seemed completely fascinated. As he carried his heavy gift box outside, standing on the platform, he saw the full majesty of her level 57 train, the Night Angel. It was a massive black and white masterpiece of 18 carriages, oozing pure luxury that made his own 2-car train look like total garbage. He felt real envy. Though he tried to psych himself up, one day he would surpass her. A friend request popped up on his screen. He really wanted to decline, but a forced message from her, complete with a smug emoji, made it clear that was not happening. He accepted just to survive, but he sneakily changed her contact name to Golden Retriever. She caught him instantly, calling him a good boy and warning him that she could track him anywhere. He panicked. He quickly changed it to Evil Woman Golden Retriever. The engines roared, shaking the entire town. Fireworks erupted in the sky as Shea bit into a lollipop. She announced her departure, and the train vanished into the void, leaving Mystic Belltown silent. He stared at her parting gift. Level 9 safety box, a secure cube completely impervious to any outside damage. He was completely stunned by her sheer generosity. Even empty, this pristine box was worth a fortune. He quickly renamed her contact to Beautiful Kind-Hearted Lady and pressed his thumb to the center of the seal to bind it. Binding notification flashed before his eyes instantly, confirming the process was complete. He checked the safety box and watched it organize his loot into slots. 1 flame stone, 10 kilograms of gold, another 10 of mithril, and 3 vibrant lollipops. The box clearly favored premium quality over bulk keeping. Everything neatly arranged. He stared at the materials, feeling a wave of relief. This was exactly what he needed to upgrade his train to level 4. Without his sublimation talent, finding a flame stone early on would be impossible. Shea had absolutely no idea about his secret abilities. Still, her gift was a perfectly calculated strategic boost, but the candy caught his eye. Upon closer inspection, the system identified them as Shea's healing lollipops. A level 8 masterpiece crafted by the legendary Dark Nun herself. Consuming one would form a protective barrier against external damage while rapidly mending wounds and completely restoring stamina. The attached note was simple. As long as he was not dead, these would keep him alive. Suddenly, a chime echoed as a message from Shea popped up. She asked if he liked her little surprise, reminding him that the jump from level 3 to level 4 is a major threshold. She explained that for most newcomers, flamestones are incredibly rare until at least the 10th station, meaning she had saved him weeks of grind. Shea saved him weeks of agonizing struggle, warning him not to casually eat those lollipops, urging him to survive long enough to assemble the blasphemy card. Reading those words, he felt a deep wave of gratitude, even though he did not strictly need this massive head start. Smiling, he muttered a quiet thanks to the empty carriage. If he ever found another fragment of that legendary blasphemy card, he would do whatever it took to get it, wondering what kind of insane power would awaken if completed. Meanwhile, far away in the endless wilderness, the Black Knight Angel train roared forward. Shea stood at her high prayer platform, munching on fruit while staring out at a horizon that never changed. Suddenly, she got a message from an old friend, surprised at her sudden return after 15 years. Shea calmly replied that fate had chosen a different path and her focus was now pure retribution. Asked about the powerful company, she scoffed, only to hear that the heavenly inspectors had already vanished. Meanwhile, back in Mystic Belltown, the clock was ticking down fast. Ikian spent his remaining 20 minutes tearing apart the houses Shea left behind. Even with grueling labor, he salvaged an absolute mountain of raw materials, pulling out wood, metal, and gears, though only a tenth of it survived. Shea had designed a special safety box that could store whole carriages, which saved him massive trouble, but time was rapidly running out for him. Once the countdown ticked down to the final 10 minutes, he gave up. He had 645 kilograms of wood, 770 kilograms of metal, 500 parts plus gold and mithril, quite a hoard. Instead of a normal upgrade, he planned an insane gamble, talk about high stakes. Just then his robot Wally wobbled over, holding a mysterious metal cube. The system identified it as a rare level 4 treasure chest. Running his hand over the metal, he wondered if Shea left this gift. Or if it was just hidden loot. He thought about waiting to upgrade it to level 5, but he felt a strange, invisible block. His energy was peaked, yet a clear wall stood in his way. He realized that beyond level 4, everything resisted his divine sublimation talent. But he refused to plateau. If his talent was the limit then, he would simply upgrade the talent itself. He popped a healing lollipop to max out his energy, then placed his hand right on the chest. Instead of upgrading the box, he turned his entire force inward on himself. He was going to sublimate his own sublimation talent. The world turned blood red. Blinding red warnings flashed as a massive surge of power wrapped the train. Conductors across the entire sector felt a sudden wave of pure, primal fear. As the red light erupted, his consciousness completely faded into the black. Drifting in the void, he barely noticed the glitched system messages. An error had occurred in fate, trying and failing to correct his path. Selection failing completely. A countdown started 5-4-3 when the timer hit. The system randomly chose his next destination, Hope Valley. Level 4 Slaughter Station. Instantly, the train accelerated through the void. More errors appeared as a mysterious force tried to interfere with his departure, attempting to set the countdown to infinity to trap him forever. However, the train system fought back, wiping out the interference and resetting the clock. The new countdown was 10 hours, extremely dangerous. Extremely dangerous. In the train's quiet cabin, his consciousness finally began to return. The train had already been stopped for 10 minutes when the sunlight streaming through the window hit his face, finally waking him from deep slumber. Blinding glare. He looked around in a daze, and as he peered outside, vast stretches of deep forest filled his vision. This was clearly no longer the wilderness, but a platform station. As he became fully conscious, memories of what happened before he blacked out surged back like a tide. He looked down. An ironclad chest lay quietly at his feet. It was a level 5 chest. It worked. He had actually succeeded in that dangerous round of self-sublimation. He quickly pulled up his personal interface to check the talent section, and there it was. The description for sublimation had changed to include 4 crucial words: ignores resistance. It was enough to let him know he succeeded. A confident smile appeared on his face as he looked toward the Sentinel Tower device at the top of the train. The frustrating sensation of being unable to sublimate items beyond level 4 had vanished, and he realized that the shackles on his talent were finally broken. Despite his excitement, he began to cautiously inspect his surroundings. He vaguely recalled hearing strange sounds while he was unconscious, and he realized this randomly selected platform was a slaughter platform, the very last place he wanted to enter. He had no clue what the actual difference between slaughter and hunting was, considering he had never even stepped foot on a hunting platform. But the mystery was quickly overshadowed by the train system's records. As he read through the logs, his good mood faded, replaced by a heavy weight in his chest. Interference. Someone had tampered with his docking platform and duration, and although the train system had erased the meddling, the remaining countdown was staggering. He rubbed his eyes to ensure he hadn't misread the display. 10 hours. Talk about getting thrown straight into a death trap. He was stuck on an extremely dangerous platform, far past his usual 5-hour limit. And there was no doubt some hidden enemy tried to lock him here forever. And while the train system proved itself fair and trustworthy by clearing that interference, he was still in quite a bind. His only saving grace was the VIP early departure privilege module. Even with that advantage, he faced 7 more hours in this absolute nightmare. He took a deep breath to calm his thoughts. Since he was stuck, his best bet was opening the level 5 chest, hoping the loot would be enough to overwhelm a level 4 platform. As the lid opened, its rewards manifested: 10 train coins, 2 modules, and 2 level 5 items. The modules were system bind, and in station launch, he used them immediately, noting that they weren't physical cards and therefore couldn't be sublimated. The system bind module was particularly useful as it permanently moved the control base station's functions to him personally. No longer would he be inconvenienced by having to run back to the locomotive to identify items or check his info. The in-station launch module was equally vital, allowing him to move the train to specific target locations within a Station costing just 1 train coin per hour. Next, he turns his attention to his loot. The Golden Strike card, this level 5 item boosts his next attack. It multiplies his damage by 5 times, but he decides to push things even further. Activating his talent, he feels a sharp drain on his stamina and inner spirit. Although the sublimation cost is lower than before, it successfully upgrades to level 6. This golden critical card can multiply his next attack by 50 times. The thought of unleashing that kind of devastating power on an unsuspecting enemy is incredibly enticing. He slips the card into his pocket, relieved he will not be helpless. Against giant monsters, he has options. Now he grabs the accurate pocket watch. While a watch seems simple for a level 5 reward, this piece is absolutely gorgeous. It is crafted from pure white materials with ornate golden patterns. Gemstone hands tick away quietly, offering the absolute most precise time across any possible spacetime. It is a very handy tool. Suddenly, a massive bang shatters the quiet. Turning toward the noise, he spots crimson blood pooling in a nearby forest clearing. A monster dog corpse floats, clutching a dagger. It bobs to the surface of the blood. The sentinel towers reveal ability worked. It caught the beast, but the sudden death of one single monster is just the beginning. The tower flares red as locking rings appear below. Entire waves of monsters begin charging out of the forest, heading straight for the train. Gunfire erupts in a deafening, constant roar as the sentinel tower suddenly goes to full power. It vaporizes every single creature, entering the 100-meter zone. He breathes slightly easier seeing the defense hold, but his heavy heart still grows heavier. Every gunshot is a grim reminder. Without this sentinel tower and its special skills, he would have been torn apart by stealthy beasts sneaking onto the train. This terrifying situation makes him seriously question the true, dark nature of this bizarre platform. In this world, the line between hunting and being slaughtered is paper thin. Hunting means killing, but slaughter means waiting in utter despair to be butchered. This deadly encirclement was clearly designed by some unknown, hostile interfering force. They want him dead in this forest, yet he just sits quietly in his carriage. Staring at the screens, his cold resolve hardens, ready for whatever is coming. But get this, whoever wanted him dead is in for a highly frustrating surprise. No matter the danger, this is still just a level 4 platform. And he is far from helpless, especially as the initial wave of monsters finally tapers. The desperate siege finally ends, leaving behind absolute silence. Climbing onto the train roof, he reaches out to touch the defense device. It is still scalding hot. A level 5 defense will surely crush this level 4 station. Without hesitating, he triggers another sublimation to upgrade his setup even more. His spirit drops instantly from 90 to 40, but the resulting payoff is completely immediate. The device transforms into a sentinel guard, unleashing an immense power jump. This terrifying beast can now be easily armed with up to 9 different heavy weapons. It can appear anywhere on the train, instantly expanding its defensive reach. Its surveillance range now spans 150 meters, locking onto any hostile target. It easily dispels enemy illusions and stealth, keeping them fully exposed. It can even briefly detach to pursue threats. Best of all, he can activate Overlimit. Spending just 1 train coin will instantly double its devastating attack speed. Things were getting truly dire, but he was far from finished with the upgrades. His level 4 upgrades were not just for the roof. He headed to the 3rd carriage. There, the surveillance device sat completely idle, having seen very little use lately. The sentinel handled everything outside, but he knew he had to prepare for the worst. Because honestly, any smart survivor knows the inside of the train is a blind spot. If a monster bypassed external sensors, that device would be his final defense. He poured 40 points of stamina and 10 points of spirit into it. This successfully upgraded the machine into an illusion surveillance system. Now it could monitor every single corner of the train and sound alarms. It could even trigger disorienting illusions, but after 3 consecutive upgrades, a heavy exhaustion settled over him. Still, he forced himself to keep going. He returned to the lead carriage to grab both the mythical cross and the pure earthbound stone, while mechanical sensors handled physical threats. These mystical items would be his shield against supernatural dangers. He knew the pure earthbound stone still had potential for one last upgrade. But with his energy completely drained, he had to be patient and wait. After donning his bulletproof armor, he tightened his grip on his black pistol. Preparing as thoroughly as possible, he was determined to leave this station alive. No matter the cost, before settling in, he remembered one more thing. Next, he activated his robot, Wall-E, since he was already trapped here. It would be a waste not to gather whatever resources he could find. With preparations finally complete, he realized he was absolutely starving. He pulled meat and vegetables from storage and set up a grill outside, cooking his lunch amidst the echoing sound of distant gunfire. Having been out cold for an entire day, he deserved a proper meal. While the food sizzled, he checked his system logs for updates. He was surprised to find changes after completing the 5th station. The restrictions on private trading and listing items inside a station had finally been lifted. He could now list up to 5 items at once, which is a great upgrade, though you have to feel for his bad timing. Unfortunately, he missed the active trading window entirely while he was out cold. Just then, his private chat interface began to flicker with new messages. Shangyun Yingyue reached out first, asking if he had felt the recent tremors. Her abrupt apology afterward left him quite puzzled about his blackout. Xiaolin also sent a message, thanking him for helping with her recent upgrade. She even shared a photo of a snack shop at her 6th station. A quiet flicker of envy hit him, seeing all that food and alcohol. But he remained highly skeptical of her luck conservation talent. After all, great luck is always shadowed by some form of inevitable misfortune. For all he knew, she might end up in a terrible place like this next. Finally, there was a message from Lai Zio, still pushing his empty alliance. The guy claimed he would be the first to get a level 3 train. This future help was offered only in exchange for his weapons. That proposal was just a hollow promise from a shady corporate boss. But as he scrolled through his remaining contacts, several names had turned gray. Shattered trains and lost lives served as a grim reminder of Shaw's warnings. He wiped his active chats and put up a bulk purchase request for gunpowder. His post highlighted that only 2,453 survivors remained. Only that handful remained from 10,000, making any replies incredibly slow. Many were still exploring, without the modules needed to access the system remotely. They could only check from their trains, which kept his post from getting buried. An hour had already zipped by since he docked at this dangerous station. Thanks to his sentinels, a 150-meter radius became a safe zone. Inside the sanctuary, he kicked back with grilled meat and sweet forest fruit. He washed it down with a cold beer traded from Xiaolin, feeling quite relaxed. It almost felt like a cozy forest vacation if he ignored the blood in the air. Once his stomach was full, his head cleared and he started formulating a plan. Defending this slaughter platform did not mean he had to just sit around idling. There was no need for passive waiting when so much loot was sitting outside. The dead beasts left behind by his sentinels were worth far more than nothing. Processing them at his station would surely yield some pretty valuable materials. He did not hesitate for even a second, leaping straight into action. After buying a large bamboo basket, he threaded thick ropes through it. He slung it over his shoulders and strapped a sharp dagger to a wooden stick. This DIY sickle was perfect for dragging carcasses during the quiet lulls in battle. Whenever the sentinels cleared an area, he rushed out to gather the remains. Dragging them back, he processed the corpses of level 2 blackhorn hunting dogs, along with level 3 swift fear snakes and level 3 assassin lizards. Feeding them into the processing station yielded an incredibly substantial harvest. He secured 10 portions of dog meat, 5 of snake, and 10 of lizard. Aside from food, he harvested rare materials like a stealthy assassin lizard skin. Carrying it would slightly hide his presence, alongside a corrosive hunting dog dagger. He picked up the pace, roaming freely within the 150-meter boundary. He felt completely safe knowing his sentinels had the entire area locked down. No beast could touch him, making this platform highly profitable so far. His level 5 sentinel guards easily dominated any creature they targeted. They absolutely destroyed anything level 4 or lower. Even during occasional beast tides, a quick overlimit mode did the trick. Engaging their overlimit mode repelled the massive waves with absolute ease. Between automated defenses and his own snipes, they stood absolutely zero chance. This forest was now his personal slaughterhouse. He knew his gear was powerful enough to pierce almost anything. It easily shredded Shaw's puppets, so these beasts stood no chance. But after 5 hours of constant shooting, a serious issue popped up. He was running dangerously low on ammo, despite starting with a massive stockpile. Out of nearly 1,000 rounds, fewer than 400 remained. As night fell, the surrounding monsters began acting a lot more cautious. The overwhelming scent of blood and piled corpses kept the surviving monsters on edge. They hovered just outside his attack range, waiting for the perfect opening. Checking his gemstone pocket watch, he saw the critical hour approaching. It was 6:12 p.m. With night approaching, he had no intention of pushing his luck further. Into the woods, he lit a campfire with his lighter and prepared a fresh piece of snake meat, skewering it over the flames. His efforts had netted him 810 kilograms of various meats now safely stored in his units, where the storage carriages. Unique properties would keep them from rotting. As the meat roasted, he pulled up the system light screen to check the chat room. The survivor count had dropped to 2404. It seemed the sixth station had claimed many more lives. While he was occupied, the chat was a frantic mix of panic and desperation. With people realizing the next night's survival event was imminent, some were terrified, still stuck with level 1 trains and lacking the resources to upgrade to the 40 kilometers speed required to outrun the coming darkness. He watched as people begged for metal and parts, willing to trade every scrap of food and water they possessed just to survive the night. Others pointed toward Lai Zio Shang's alliance, though the reports were grim. He was charging sky-high prices, demanding a train coin for a mere 15 kilograms of metal. His lackeys were in the chat, defending the brother Lai monopoly, claiming only he was brave enough to sell materials now, even as they hiked the price to 10 kilograms per coin. Looking at the 2,000 remaining conductors, he realized about a tenth of them were still trapped behind that level 1 threshold, whether through poor choices or sheer misfortune. They were now desperate enough to spend anything to bridge the gap. He still had 16 train coins, but he knew the next round of upgrades would be expensive. If there was an opportunity to earn more, he wasn't going to pass it up. He wrote a message and threw it into the fray, offering 30 kilograms of metal or wood, or 20 mechanical parts for a single train coin. His prices were more reasonable than Lai Zio Shang's, and he made it clear that quantities were limited and the terms were non-negotiable. The reaction was instantaneous. While some called him a bloodsucker, the majority of the chat recognized the value. Desperate conductors instantly flooded his private messages, while Lai Zio Shang's supporters tried to trash his reputation, only to be shut down by those grateful for a fair alternative. He ignored the petty squabbles entirely. His listings on the trading interface sold out in a heartbeat, and in an instant, his wealth grew by another 10 train coins. The chat room remained a cacophony of noise, filled with voices begging for material listings, while a relentless flood of private messages overwhelmed his inbox. He decided to list another batch of resources, but the return was meager. Only 3 train coins. It wasn't that the demand had vanished, but rather that almost no one actually possessed the coins anymore. Treasure chests were becoming a rare luxury in this world. Reflecting on his own journey, he realized that without Wally's specialized assistance, the only chest he likely would have found was that initial one from the armory. No chests meant no coins, and no coins meant a lack of resources for the upgrades essential to surviving the next night. It was a cycle of certain death for many, but he reminded himself that it had nothing to do with him. He couldn't save everyone. Listing materials was a business move to harvest what few coins remained. In his eyes, if a conductor couldn't manage their first upgrade after 6 stations, they simply were not cut out for this environment. As he scanned the desperate pleas for trades, he noticed a recurring pattern. Almost none of them offered anything of value to prove they were worth the effort. Then, a message from someone named Peng. When Xuan caught his eye, he claimed to have only one blueprint left and was desperate for 30 kilograms of metal to save his train. Such blueprints were always worth a look, though he found it strange that even a low-tier one had not fetched him resources from someone else. He asked what it was, and he responded with frantic gratitude, sending over the details for a level 1 wooden bow. He had to take back his earlier curiosity. It was no wonder he could not sell it. In an age of guns and crossbows, how many people actually knew how to handle a bow? It required skill and strength, unlike the simple aim and pull mechanics of a firearm, and this did not even include arrows. Still, a blueprint was a blueprint. While it was useless to the masses, it held potential for him. He agreed to the trade. Peng Wen Xuan wept With joy at his acceptance, calling him a good person and promising repayment, he merely scratched his head at the good person label. These days, such a remark felt more like an insult than a compliment. He did not dwell on his promise of repayment, as he suspected this would be their final interaction. If he was only just reaching level 2 now, the escalating difficulty would likely swallow him whole. Once the transaction was complete, he turned to his true goal. Sublimation, a trash tier level 1 blueprint could become something far more formidable in his hands. He poured a small amount of spirit into it, watching the level 1 bow evolve into a level 2 black hardwood bow. He checked the requirements: 10 kilograms of wood and a bit of fiber, and crafted it immediately. Then he pushed it further with another 10 points of spirit. The weapon transformed into a level 3 floral enchanted wooden bow. It was a peculiar, beautiful thing, adorned with floral patterns and capable of consuming spirit to craft its own energy arrows with a minor auto-aim feature. He drew the string, watching a pale pink arrow materialize and fire, piercing through a distant monster with impressive power. It was comparable to his armor-piercing rounds, but he still preferred his guns. Regardless, this enchanted bow would fetch a handsome price if he chose to sell it. He went to all the unfamiliar private messages from his screen, unconcerned with the pleas of strangers. He knew that charging a coin for 30 kilograms of scrap already proved he was no saint. However, he left his friend's messages untouched, noticing one from Shangyu and Yingu. She was looking for bullets and offered gunpowder in exchange. She was always a pleasant, well-supplied partner, so the timing was perfect. He offered her 10 level 3 bullets for every 500 grams of gunpowder, mentioning that he would cover the cost of the crafting metal himself. She agreed instantly, asking for 100 rounds. He was genuinely surprised she had managed to stockpile so much gunpowder. It meant she was providing enough raw material for him to craft 1,000 bullets. Trading with her was truly a delight. With the deal closed, he set to work at the processing station. Any concerns he had about his ammunition levels for the station vanished as he loaded fresh rounds into his sentry guns, ensuring. As he watched the snake meat sizzle over the grill, oil dripping as the salt sparkled, he quickly typed out a message to ask her about the tremor. She had mentioned it before, and he explained he was unconscious yesterday. He got badly hurt at a station, making her apologize for doubting him. She thought he was ignoring her, then described how the tremor hit. Around 5:50 p.m., a terrifying primal fury shook the area. He noted the time. It was exactly when he had left Mystic Beltone, so he thanked her for sharing. He then asked if she had found anything good at her last station. She sent a screenshot of a level 2 frost stone that could freeze liquids. She offered it to him for 60 bullets or just 2 train coins. He immediately started thinking about how nice a cold drink would be right now. This item was incredibly valuable. Without a water tank, the brutal heat would ruin everything. Surviving in this scorching wasteland meant stored water would spoil and rot in no time. But keeping the temperature near the freezing point could delay that decay forever. It was more than survival, it was absolute luxury during a heat wave. In this heat, who could actually resist the temptation of a cold drink? No one could resist an ice-cold beer while the world outside was scorching. He realized he almost overlooked a major asset and returned to his train compartment. He searched through his stored blueprints until he finally located his target. He got this exact blueprint as an upgrade option after his first enhancement. He had only built it once, but its necessity here was absolute. He immediately thought of Shangyu and Yingyue, a woman obsessed with water. She had an inexplicable, almost elemental connection to the precious liquid. She would love this, so he sent her the details of the basic water tank. He asked if she wanted to buy it, and her interest piqued instantly. She asked for the price, and he told her it would be 2 coins. She hesitated, explaining she lacked the funds and begging to buy it on credit. 2 coins seemed way too expensive for a basic tank, but he refused credit. He suggested trading other items instead, scoffing at the ridiculous idea of credit. Shangyu and Yingyue knew that getting credit in a wasteland was a total joke. After pausing briefly, she made her move, offering an ice condensation pearl instead. He was internally stunned. She actually agreed to that without even trying to bargain. He patted the iron frame of his water tank, knowing it was just basic metal. Honestly, this thing was basically just a chunk of iron with some simple functions. The blueprint only cost him 1 coin, yet he was about to make 3. He was selling a single unit for 3 times its value. Appearances can lie. When she asked if he was uninterested, he quickly accepted the great trade. He told her to wait a moment, because he definitely was not refusing this. Taking the blueprint and the necessary materials, he headed straight to his crafting station. He immediately began processing the build. A brand new tank materialized. Right then, her trade request arrived, and he quickly accepted the deal. With the exchange complete, he picked up the ice condensation pearl, examining it closely. This was an amazing haul. He planned to buy some drinks from Xiaolin later. He could only hope that she would actually survive until the next stop. First, he needed to handle the sublimation, preparing himself for the process. His spirit dropped from 104 to 84 as the level 3 pearl transformed. Manipulating water into ice and shaping it, the description intrigues him, making him wonder. If this means he can finally wield some real power, clearing his throat, he strikes what he thinks is a highly impressive pose, pointing the ice vein pearl directly at the water tank to summon an ice sword, the fresh water inside slowly hums, condensing into a long blade of pure ice. He reaches out to grab the hilt, but the moment his fingers brush it, the blade shatters into 1,000 useless shards. Talk about a complete flop. He expected epic magic, but this was just a massive letdown. Still, he doesn't feel it is a complete loss. He practically got the pearl for free. No real harm done. He checks the chat interface again, his eyes landing on the floral enchanted wooden bow resting right beside him. He hesitates before sending a screenshot of the weapon to Shangyuan Yingshuer, offering it for 4 train coins or an item of equal value. She seems to freeze, replying that she is totally broke and the price is too high. He counters confidently, telling her it is not expensive at all for a level 3 weapon that completely outclasses any monster they have encountered so far. He reminds her again that she can trade items of equal value since she lacks coins. She sounds resentful, demanding to know why he hadn't mentioned this bow earlier, if he offered it. From the start, she wouldn't have wasted her precious resources on bullets. He shamelessly keeps up the act, claiming he only just remembered having it, while pointing out that she was the one asking for bullets in the first place. He tells her that if she can't trade, he'll simply find another buyer. He is still testing her limits. Compared to Xiaolin, Shangyuan Yingshuer seems way luckier. She is, after all, the first conductor besides him to upgrade her train. She definitely has more goodies stashed away. He asks if she found anything else in that treasure chest from the last station besides the pearl, adding a casual note that he's not hinting she should trade them. His words must sting because he can almost feel her urge to delete him from her contacts right through the screen. She's probably wondering if he really thinks she is that desperate. After all, it's only a level 3 weapon, and she does not absolutely need it to survive. Suddenly, a screenshot pops up. Level 2 consumes 2 spirit points to predict the next day's weather at noon. She makes it clear that if he won't trade for that, she's completely done. She has truly offered everything she can. It's not out of desperation, but a level 3 weapon is an incredible temptation for someone still navigating with a level 2 train. She has decided that if he refuses this trade, she won't offer another scrap. He replies immediately, telling her that since they've traded so much already, he'll do her a favor and accept the deal. Despite his calm reply, he's beaming with joy. Talk about hitting the jackpot. He's struck gold again. He took a blueprint obtained for a mere 30 kilograms of scrap and flipped it for what amounts to 3 train coins. He is starting to feel like a complete business genius. The trade goes through smoothly. The fresh water fills his tank, and a white sunny doll appears in his hand. It is actually quite cute. He doesn't wait long before initiating another sublimation. His spirit drops from 84 to 69. Level 3 consumes 1 spirit point to predict today's and tomorrow's weather at any time. The upgrade is perfect. Now he could check the weather whenever he wanted instead of waiting until noon, and the cost was cut in half. Since its appearance stayed the same, he hung it up in his climate-controlled resting compartment. This string of trades had brought him significant gains, not a complete transformation perhaps, but a massive accumulation of wealth. He now had 30 train coins in his possession. He briefly considered sublimating the train again, but decided it was better to wait until he had left the station. It simply wasn't safe here. Having made up his mind, he stepped out of the compartment, only to be hit by a sudden pungent odor. He sniffed the air and his face twisted in horror. His Meat was ruined. The snake meat he had been roasting was completely charred and inedible. He sighed, realizing he would have to start over. As he prepared to relight the grill, he realized that Wally still hadn't returned after all this. Times he couldn't help but wonder if the little guy had actually died out there. He could practically feel the waves of fury radiating from Lai Zio Shan as the chat room remained in an uproar. Lai Zio Shan was clearly beyond incensed, likely wearing a look of pure disgust after realizing he had actually been deleted from the friends list. To make matters worse for him, the conductor was selling materials at prices that undercut his own, which he saw as a deliberate challenge to his authority. Honestly, he probably felt like he swallowed a fly, staring at that notification, muttering threats about making him regret his choices while sitting surrounded by his pile of basic wood and metal. He let out a triumphant laugh, convinced he was the chosen one because he could upgrade every 3 stations, immediately initiating his transition to Level 3. However, his arrogance hit a wall the moment he looked at the new requirements. It is easy to imagine his deep frown as he stared at those unknown names. Like Flamestone's gold and mithril, his talent, as powerful as it seemed, evidently had its limits. It allowed him to pinpoint basic resources, like metal and wood, but could not touch the exotic materials required for higher tiers. He was finding out the hard way that his path would not be smooth as he had imagined. While he was fuming, the conductor finally got the chance to eat. During the 6-hour stopover, he spent his time blowing ashes off a piece of snake meat. The rich aroma made his mouth water despite only having basic salt for seasoning. The monsters outside had been strangely passive during this entire period. Even when he proactively took shots at them with his rifle, they would only scatter and retreat back to their 150-meter perimeter. It felt as though they were practicing a patient siege, simply waiting for him to make a mistake. As he chewed on the meat and rubbed his chin in contemplation, a rustling sound came from the nearby brush. He did not reach for his gun because the sentinel guard remained silent, recognizing the source. Wally approached from the distance, wobbling on his tracks, and he greeted the robot, saying he had almost thought he got himself killed out there. The little robot could not speak, but he presented him with a tree stump that the system appraised as a level 4 treasure chest. His mood shifted instantly as he patted his metal head and praised his consistent performance. He did not open the chest right away, instead discarding his meal and boarding the train while jokingly advising him. He warns her not to bring monsters back. A massive howl suddenly shakes the forest. It erupts from the woods. A giant white wolf, the size of a grown man, suddenly lunges forward. The instant it crosses the sentry's perimeter, a storm of bullets hammers its body. The automated defense system clearly determines that this is no ordinary target. The creature is quickly identified as a level 4 lightning wolf. It yelps in pain as bright blue electricity crackles across its thick fur. Its speed explodes after activating lightning armor, rapidly closing the distance. It gets within 50 meters of the train in a flash. He doesn't hesitate to trigger overdrive.